All right. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report. Black Masculinist news for the day. Get my little mic together here. Hope you guys are well. There we go. Yeah. Hope all is well with everybody. Shout out to those of you coming in early as usual. Good brother Barry, what's up? Hasan, Clarence, Cynical, what's going on? We got Duan, got brother Damon, what's up? We got Simeon, what's going on? Greg, Adrian, hey Rue, Busy Mike, Duan, Phil. Shout out to Layman's Journal. Appreciate that early support. Y'all support the Layman's Journal channel. Go check him out. Shout out to Barry for the early donations and setting off tonight's tuition drive. Real talk. Appreciate that. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. So we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. Count Sekou, what's up? Magnificent, what's going on? Number of people in the house. So we are good. Coming up on 80 people so far. So please make sure you hit the like button, share, so we can get this word out and get it going. We are also broadcasting tonight on innerlightradio.com. So shout out to them. Black owned station, so support it. What's good, High Scholar? All right. Night Raven, what's up? Joe Average Brother, what's going on? Spain Man, what's going on, Spain Man? Lewis, Ken. All right. Got Gail at night. What's going on? Yeah. So appreciate y'all coming through. Got a few things to kind of get through before we jump in. There's really just to get it going. So if you don't know, right, this is the Onyx Report. You can support the show in a variety of ways. You can do so on Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, of course, right here on YouTube with the super chat. You know, super thanks. You can send those donations through there. You can also support through Patreon. You can become a monthly supporter. You can become a member of the channel on YouTube or a monthly supporter on Patreon. And through Patreon, you could support the Onyx Report here on YouTube. You can support the Institute for Black Male Studies, which you just saw a commercial for. And you can go ahead and actually buy merchandise as well. And or you can also support the Onyx Network and check out the TV channel we have. Downloadable on iPhone, on everything. You pretty much download it on Android, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and so you can support the Onyx Network, right? But nevertheless, the Onyx Report is where we as black male justice advocates uplift black men and boys using critical analysis. Right? Shout out to Scene Symbolism, new member. Appreciate that. Welcome to the Onyx Brotherhood. You know, that's what's up. We also got a couple of super chats. Shout out to Brandon and Greg. Appreciate the cash apps. Excuse me. Appreciate the cash apps. So continue to support the show. Much appreciated. Got BGS in the building. Got no one. What's going on? Let me see here. So I'm going to start out tonight with a quick one that's both inspiring and a little sad at the same time. This is what we're referring to as the Sacred Black Masculine series. I've been doing this the last few years, and it's done at random. You know, it's pretty much when, you know, I see, a brother come through that's done something that's worthy of acknowledgement and in many ways flies in the face of stereotypes about black men. And we've heard them all. You know, black men are not supportive. They're not loving. They don't want to be in families. They don't want to do X. They don't want to do Y. And for the most part, it's bull. But in a situation like this, I do think this young brother needs to be honored due to his sacrifice. So this brother here. Now, the article that I'm actually reading from, you can go to atlantablackstar.com. And I'll put, after the show, I'll put all the links for everything I covered tonight in the description as usual. Just go to sources and you can actually look at the articles directly. But this young brother here is, wow, hell of a sacrifice at 16 that just needs to be acknowledged, honored, right? The title of the article is 16-year-old hero dies trying to save friend who fell through ice on Georgia lake. And this was published yesterday. So this is brand new. Georgia family is mourning a teenager who died while trying to save his friend in an icy lake. Corin Brooks, 16, was playing with 4 friends on top of what they believed was a frozen Ellison Lake near Lakeside Vista Apartments in the Atlanta suburb of Kennesaw on December 28th. When it started to crack underneath them, a neighbor who witnessed the tragedy said he thought nothing of the teenagers playing on the ice atop the bed of water that did not appear deep until he heard screams. It looked pretty sturdy at first, they said, so I didn't think much of it. However, according to the neighbor, 2 of the teenagers fell through into the frigid water and got trapped in the ice. One of the kids was holding on to the other one, said Pollard, and then, so Alex Pollard was the witness, and then yelled for his roommate to call 911 as he was carrying groceries from his car. Corin took action to save his friend, who first responders pulled out of the water. However, rescuers did not find Corin until more than an hour later, and he did not survive. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. It says Corin saved one of his friend's lives, but the cold, slushy ice water was too much. Corin got caught in debris under the cold water and didn't come up. The boy's aunt, Brandy Wells, wrote as part of an online fundraiser on behalf of Corin's mother. Wells said Corin was a quiet and brilliant kid who loved to play video games and planned a future in making video game soundtracks. When Corin wasn't mastering his music or gaming, he would be playing with his friends outdoors, which she said led to the unfathomable moment. Corin Troy Brooks will be remembered for his love for all, family and friends, for his creativity and his ability to make any situation funny. Kennesaw Mountain High School junior would have been celebrating his 17th birthday on January 12th. Were he alive, he reportedly had asked for a laser tag party. In the midst of their pain and sorrow, Corin's family is proud of his bravery and consider him a hero, as do I. So shout out to this young brother. Man. Yeah. Taken too young, but at the same time, worthy of praise and acknowledgement. So shout out to this young brother, Corin Brooks. Right? So just needed to get that in to start off the show, not to sadden anyone, but really to acknowledge a sacrifice, this young brother made to save others. It's commendable and heroic. And I find that to be the case with many a black man that doesn't get any fanfare. You can go ahead and support the show in a variety of ways. And as I said earlier, you can also support the Onyx Network. So please make sure that you do so. So tonight, we're going to talk about a few things as it relates to a concept, right? And most of the concepts that the brothers come up with, myself included, we try to identify things that have been going on for the longest, even though we haven't named them, we haven't termed them, but we're mostly familiar with them. And it's important to name things. It's important to term things, because you find that if it is something that more than a few experience, but don't have a language for, don't have a terminology for, it tends to go unrecognized. But when you actually call it out and address it, you now make it a thing that has to be recognized, addressed, and dealt with. And that's one of the goals we have here at the Onyx Report, as it pertains to black men and boys, identifying phenomena, particularly phenomena that hurts or problematizes or makes more difficult black male life, right? Identifying it, calling it out for what it is, and addressing it. So we're going to start with, let me go ahead and share this. So we're going to start with, here we go. Something you guys might have seen in the news recently, right? Concerning Gervonta Davis, right? Vanessa Paso admits Gervonta Davis did not harm her or their daughter after accusations of smearing poop on items. Shout out to Tyrone Amerson for the support and super sticker. Appreciate that. We got growth in the building. You got the link, good brothers. So, I'll let you know when to come through. But you will be up shortly. Just want to cover some things to prep for tonight. So anyway, This piece came out. And there was another that I'm not going to cover tonight, but it was on a white coach who had a similar treatment, was arrested for domestic violence, and his wife came out and admitted that she called called it in unjustly, right? Derek Eaton, appreciate that support. Thank you. Right? But something happens here. So here you go. Right? Vanessa Poso, Gervonta Davis. And shout out to Gervonta in terms of how he handled this. Sad that he had to, but it is what it is. All right, so let's go through and read it. Poso is clearing the air on what happened between her and Gervonta Davis earlier this week. Davis was arrested for battery and domestic violence on December 27th. In the 911 call, Poso repeatedly screamed for help and said Davis was trying to kill her, though she didn't name him. On Friday, Poso released a statement sharing responsibility for their domestic disagreement. She described the last few days as hurtful and extremely exhausting for all parties involved. So, Davis is an electrifying young man, seems to be doing well in the boxing world. But at the end of the day, as a black male, it doesn't take much for him to be not only vilified, but vilified in a manner that people accept because as a black male, he's considered scary, threatening, so on and so forth. And in many situations, women know this, and they can weaponize that fear, right, for their own purposes. So she states, the state of our relationship has been in a fragile space, and Gervonta and I were both at fault for the argument. While the emotions were running high, I made an unnecessary call to law enforcement in an intense moment while I was frantic. Gervonta did not harm me or our daughter. That's what we're talking about. Right? She also explained how she and Gervonta had chosen to move on from the incident. Today, we have sought the help necessary to move forward with our lives. I am confident that we will success with our co-parenting dynamic with the counseling provided to both of us. Right. So it reveals that she's in counseling with Gervonta Davis following his arrest. Reiterates that he didn't hurt her. This, again, his whole career, his public reputation, forever marred by the accusation. And that's one of the things we got to talk about too. Many people know, including the women in this dynamic, that the accusation alone is enough to damage irreparably many a black man's public reputation and career. And this is sometimes the type of threat being used and imposed over black men. And I consider it a gesture that in many ways is an attempt to kind of overshadow or lay as a layer of threat toward black men to make sure you comply in a relationship. You comply with her wishes, you comply with her demands, because at the end of the day, if you don't, there's this unspoken level of threat where I may damage your public reputation by accusing you. That alone is enough to, it can end your career. But even if you're found innocent, by the way, even if you go to court and you're found innocent, you're forever marred by the fact that there was an accusation. But it can get worse when you're calling in law enforcement or individual assassins to operate on her behalf at a black male's expense. This can be a life-death issue. Just at the threat of having been called in, especially if you haven't done anything. So it continues. She defends Gervonta Davis after he released footage of the aftermath of their argument. Now that's key. He had footage to release, but let's continue. After being released, Gervonta flooded his social profile saying there was more to his arrest. He accused Poso of smearing baby poop from their toddler's diaper on toothbrushes. He showed photos of the words liar and cheater in the bathroom mirror. And Davis also shared a small clip of Poso walking away from him, toddler in arms and broken glass, very near children's toys. Meanwhile, Davis stood on the other side of a glass door with a torn shirt. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to, let's see how much of this they'll show. Yep, there you go. There you go. All right. So she's apparently putting feces on toothbrushes, right? Writing things on the other side of the glass door. Now, notice what he's doing. He's taking pictures. He's recording video. This is what, at the end of the day, you're going to have to do if you find yourself in a situation where this is being, where the evening is going left or the day or whatever it is, record by all means. Use this to protect yourselves. Again, and I'm mostly talking to those who have not actually done anything, but we'll get into that in a moment. He also shared a photo of his eldest daughter from a previous relationship. He said his argument with Poso occurred moments after indicating that his eldest was also home during the arrest. He said, I never put hands on my child's mother nor my daughter. Okay. After Gervonta spoke out, his nutritionist, Elliot Buckling, confirmed that Vanessa's energy on the 911 call did not match the scene during the call. In her apology, Poso didn't specifically take responsibility for the poopy-covered items, the writings on the mirror, or Gervonta's ripped tee. Davis is yet to respond publicly to Vanessa's apology and clarification. Meanwhile, Vanessa posted a video of their daughter on her Instagram story following her statement. It's unclear if the battery charge will be dropped following Vanessa's new story on whether Davis will be proceeding with his January 7th match against Garcia. This is a developing story. I have not chased up the more recent articles that may have come out, so feel free to share that when I bring people up later if you so choose. But we're really just talking here about the accusation, about the call, the baseless call to law enforcement. And we're talking about this as a form of what I call law enforcement / assassin, right? Proxy threat. What is a proxy threat? Right? A proxy threat basically just means that you can use others, a person or a group of persons, or law enforcement as an institution itself, to exact your will on somebody. And the instances we're mostly looking at are related to intimate partner violence. We're talking about the ways in which women can use law enforcement or assassins on their behalf toward men, most particularly Black men, to levy their will. And even just the accusation can, again, be a life threat issue in terms of how law enforcement in a given situation chooses to address it. I know one response you can have in this era is to record everything. As soon as it starts to go left, start recording. And I've known cases where men have presented the video right on their phones to law enforcement when they arrive. And this has de-escalated many a situation. We're going to deal with this when I have the good brother up later, Brother Kofa. He's going to talk about his situation. You'll see a little bit more about that. But the point I'm getting at is I want brothers who definitely know how to maintain their composure, who don't put hands on anybody, but still find themselves in situations where their wherewithal, their entire life reputation is on the line simply because she's upset. Now, in this instance, we're talking about a torn t-shirt, which implies that she put hands on him. Nobody has said he's put hands on her. And yet, when the police are called, of course, the idea is that he's at fault. He's violent, he's vicious, he's hurt somebody, right? But she's putting feces on toothbrushes, she's writing things on walls, she's tearing t-shirts. This is something that I've talked about for years. It's frustrating because the only time we hear intimate partner violence covered is when a man goes to jail for it, or when he's initially arrested for it, or even if the phone call is made to the law enforcement. But we don't talk about what's led up to any of it. And we don't actually talk about what happens. The overwhelming majority of cases, particularly in the Black community, are bidirectional. Black community is almost completely even in terms of aggressors being male or female responding to their corresponding partner, intimate partner, all together. The rates of intimate partner violence are bidirectional. They're even as far as that's concerned. And again, if you want more information for that, if you're a little late to that show, check out Dr. Tommy Curry's book, The Man Not, where he breaks this down. I have a couple papers I can point you to as well, but the data is already there. Much of the violence is bidirectional. But we'll look at this a little bit later. The majority of the violence initiated by one gender tends to be from women. But what we don't talk about is the kind of violence that's associated with the use of law enforcement. And again, I'm also talking about assassins, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. So we start this by looking at Gervonta Davis's situation. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that name, but when you guys come up, you guys can tell me, because I haven't really followed his career, but I shout out to the brother. And when I first posted this on Facebook, one of the things I said is I was referring to a video I'm going to show you in a little bit involving a female aggressor who was calling police on her husband, even though he hadn't done anything. And I said this type of abuse is what I call law enforcement / assassin proxy threat. It's the manipulative weaponization of police and vigilantes, or assassins, I should say, against men, especially black men, by female aggressors or co-participants in intimate partner violence. I want you to keep that in mind as we actually go to the next thing. So let me go ahead and share this. Hopefully the sound will come through. So this is actually two videos. This is two videos, and I need you guys to confirm that the sound comes through when I start it. These are on TikTok, and so this is the first of two. All right, let's see. Here we go. Did you guys hear that at all? Give me a 1 in the chat if you could hear that little portion. It wasn't a lot said, but if you could hear it, give me a 1. It's a short clip, but sometimes my sound isn't working. Shout out to Wrench Turner. Appreciate the support. Okay. Got some confirmation. There we go. We got some ones. Yeah, it is low. It is. It's not even just me. The video itself is low, but I want to make sure you guys can hear it. So here's the rest of this.
Look what she's doing. She's destroying everything.
Now she's calling the police right there. She's screaming. She's screaming out. I'm gonna let it start over. Right.
Look what she's doing.
That's the first of two. This is the second. This is the second video. This is the gentleman that you just saw. Let's hear him.
All right, this is an update to the prior video that everybody's seeing. But before I get to that, there's some good comments, and that's much appreciated. Also, there's some negative comments, but I'm going to take that as a grain of salt. You're not going to get me worked up, and I'm going to continue to do me. Now, on that note, I got home from work, which is my house, and as soon as I walked in the door, she confronts me at the door and states, "I seen your little TikTok video, and you better delete it now." And I said, "No." She's like, "Okay. Well, tonight you're not going to get no sleep. Tonight I'm going to give you hell." So already I knew that it's going to be a bad night.
Okay, I got somebody calling for sound. So let me know if you can hear it. Let's see. Okay, this will let me.
So she's following me all around the house. I can't get away from her. So she's like, "Hey, motherfucker, are you going to pick up your daughter? Are you going to acknowledge your daughter?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I went and got Mila. I picked her up and I was holding her, and she kept following me around, just whispering stuff in my ear, getting in my face, trying to get me worked up, but it didn't work. And the little opening that I had, I went into my daughter's room, locked the door, and put my foot in front of it because I knew what was coming next. She went to kick it in. I was only at the house no more than 10, 15 minutes. Well, whenever she could not get into that room, she went hysterically crazy. And she's the one who called the cops on me. And when the cops got there, her and the cop was talking about it. The cop said he couldn't do nothing to me. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was holding my daughter. And she's like, "So I'm about to destroy his property." He's like, "You're going to destroy his property?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to slash. What are you going to do if I slash all 4 tires?" She's like, "I'm not going to do anything because what's his is yours." She said, "Okay." So she grabbed a knife and started walking to the door. The cop backed out and watched the whole thing. And when she set the knife, they said, "Felicia, are you done yet?" She's like, "Yeah, I feel better." And when she sat the knife down, they tackled her and took her to jail. to get her checked out mentally. Well, while she was sitting in jail, she had a warrant out for arrest for failure to appear in court. So she's still in jail. So that's an update of what happened. I got the protection order granted on me and my daughter. She cannot come around me or my daughter until our court date. So now you know.
All right. So y'all see what I'm talking about, right? Now, this is happening with men across the board. But I'll be the first to tell you that black men are far more vulnerable to this. Because at the end of the day, although he was frustrated and had every right to be, I don't think he carried the same concern about law enforcement showing up that we would. The concern with law enforcement showing up would be whether or not I'm going to survive them getting there. And it doesn't have to be with me acting a fool. I don't have to do anything to incite them further. Just the fact that I'm there presents a problem. So we're already in a life-death scenario simply because they were called, right? But nevertheless, he had a valid concern. He had valid reservations, about frustrations about her behavior. You saw in the first clip, she's bashing on the car window. She's yelling and screaming. She's kicking the door. She's scaring the child, all because she's frustrated, right? Let's see. Shout out to Dusty Nuts. Appreciate the support. You gonna name? I gotta call you out by name when you put that up there. God dang. All right. But yeah, appreciate that support. This is what we're looking at, right? There's a difference between how groups of men have to be concerned about this when it comes to law enforcement. But at the same time, it's nevertheless a problem. Now here's another, and this one is a little different. Now, let me see. I gotta hope that this comes through okay. Oh, all right. I see what I did. All right. So bear with me. I'm always trying to get this right, but there's so many. This is why people actually have a staff overall when they can afford it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try and play this clip, but obviously, as it pertains to copyright, I have to do it this way. So hopefully this will work out. But let's see. Let's see how it goes. So try and share this with you. And as usual, give me a 1 if you can hear it. Okay, could you guys hear that? Somebody let me know if you could. You could hear the little bit I just played. Otherwise, I need to try and make some adjustments. I don't know what a 2 means. Just somebody let me know. Could you hear the clip? You guys couldn't hear it. There we go. That's what I wanted to know. Okay. How can I do this another way? All right. No, I'm not playing the video on the screen, but it's the sound I was more concerned about. So since you couldn't hear it, F it. Here, you know what? Let me just, I will do it old school and just take the hit as it were. And hopefully it won't be too bad. So let's try it this way. Here we go. You guys can't hear that now? Wow. This is still happening. All right. See why I'm always badgering you guys. This mess is annoying. This should have been able to come through nice and clear. Okay. Okay, so some people are telling me they can hear me or hear it. This is annoying. Okay, I'll Try it from here one more time. All right. You guys hear any of that? Did you guys hear that just there? Inner light is telling me they can hear me, but people are saying they still can't hear the video. That is really strange because that's actually playing through the proper system. All right. Well, damn. Anyway, so I will skip ahead and I'll just give you the visuals. I wanted to give you way more detail, but obviously I can't. So here you go. You got the one Crystal Gadlin, and Crystal Gadlin apparently is paying somebody or has paid someone about 40,000, I believe, to kill her future husband. She's paying her baby daddy to kill her future husband, right? And so the whole reason I'm telling you about this is, as I said, the term I'm using tonight, law enforcement slash assassin, proxy threat, right? The proxy threat is using others to exact your will against a man, most particularly a black man, simply because you can. Calling the police when falsely charging him for doing something is a life-threatening venture. In this scenario, you have a woman who's using another man and trying to get him to kill her future husband, right? That's the kind of scenario we're looking at. Now, this happens by class in different ways. When you're looking at poor women, they tend to use sex and relationships to get one man to do something to another, or even a group of men. When it comes to wealthier women, they tend to pay. They tend to pay to have assassins do that. So I don't use the term assassin lightly. I'm actually talking about assassins. I'm talking about people who are targeted, right, and used to kill another. And the thing about it is, if these men are caught, which I don't think happens anywhere near as much as it occurs, it's just considered a man on man thing, right? Unless there's direct evidence to show that she instigated this, it just looks like one guy bringing violence to another. But this is one of the things that we got to begin to look at, the way in which institutions and individuals are used as a proxy threat against black men in intimate relationships, right? So this is what we got to talk about. These are the things we got to look at because they directly impact how we experience things. It's important. Let me see. That one came up. All right. The last one I'll show up before I bring in the good brother. So Kofa, if you're there, you can go ahead and log in. I'll bring you up in a second. And I'll show you some of the data we're going to go through. So this is a piece you can find on bbc.com, coercive control, false abuse claims used to abuse men, says Charity, right? Men are sometimes forced to stay in abusive relationships because their partner has threatened to make false allegations against them if they leave, a domestic abuse Charity has said. So this is dealing with a different element. I'm talking about the threat that comes with calling in others to mitigate or to initiate violence against a man in a domestic setting. But this is actually talking about the impact that it has against them in terms of having to stay in certain relationships. Threats can include wrongfully accusing them of child abuse or domestic violence, according to Rhonda Lusty from the Men's Advisory Project. She said innocent men fear allegations would be believed automatically due to societal attitudes to domestic abuse. She urged all victims to report abuse. Threatening to make false allegations in order to stop a partner from ending a relationship is one form of coercive control, a pattern of psychologically abusive behaviors that were made illegal in Northern Ireland in February this year. They actually made it illegal, right? But this is dealing with a different dimension of what we're talking about. This is dealing with, controlling a partner and preventing them from being able to leave a relationship, using false charges to do that. We have definitely worked with men who have threats of, I will go to your work and say that you are a sexual abuser. And I know men who've had this happen. No evidence asked for, no evidence required, no names publicly brought about in terms of the person accusing you, simply going to one's job or calling the police and accusing you is enough. I will tell the police that you've harmed me. I will tell police that you've harmed our kids. I've even heard of this being brought up in divorce cases where her attorney would tell the mother to falsely accuse him of abusing the children and yourself in order to get custody and use that against him in terms of the divorce and the dissolving of ownership of property and so on and so forth. All of these things end up kind of leveraging against men her position, right? Those threats will keep a man in a relationship because not only does he love the person and want to remain in the family, there's this fear that because he's a man and because of how we view domestic abuse, that those threats will be believed without question, right? It continues, harrowing and extreme. Wait a minute. Oh no, that's another article. My bad. Right. So that short piece there. Right. Coercive control, false abuse claims used to abuse men. Right. So these are the kind of things I want you guys to be aware of. I want us to be able to talk about because they can play a serious role in impacting how men experience and navigate forms of abuse that are not popular. You don't see films about this. You don't hear about this to any great extent. Occasionally, you'll find an article about it, but it's very difficult to ascertain how often it occurs, who it's happening to. Because I would argue, not only do many men not, feel like they're coming forward would yield them much support, but we don't even often have the means to identify what's happening to us. Again, this is the benefit of terminology. This is the benefit of having concepts that are popularized once they're defined so that people are aware that these things can even occur. But if you're not even aware something is a thing, no matter how long it's been happening to you, you just take it. You just assume that it's just whatever, right? These are some of the things we're going to challenge and we're going to look at a little bit tonight. I want to bring in a good brother. If you're not familiar, let me go ahead and I will actually also put the labels up because I want you to support his channel. I want you to subscribe. He's doing some excellent work over there. This is Growth Talk with Kofa. What's good, man?
Peace, brother. Can you hear me good?
You can hear you perfectly, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing
Happy
well.
New Year.
Same to you. Happy New Year. Your channel is how old?
Coming up on a year now. I think I started it in January. I really didn't start posting until February, I want to say, of last year.
Okay. So it's a fairly new channel, but I ran across the brother's channel a couple months ago, or a few months ago, and he's been doing some phenomenal work. But there's something he dropped in the last week that's just been off the chain. I want you to tell people what you dropped and share whatever you feel like sharing regarding that. But I want y'all to actually go to his channel, check out the two videos because it's two now, right?
Yeah, it's two now.
And they're relatively short. He's not doing the videos are not necessarily 3 hours or anything like that, but he's telling you some critical stories. Can you tell us what the stories are about and what really pushed you to drop them and share your experience with us?
So, so the videos are titled "How I Almost Tory Lanez" and Gervonta.
I think you said it right, Gervonta.
Gervonta Davis, myself, years ago. So the first video, so I'll answer your questions kind of in reverse. So what prompted me to do the videos was the backlash and everything I was seeing with Tory Lanez, how he was celebrated for, pretty much going to jail for 22 years. I've seen men, shame him because he shouldn't have been in the situation, which I agree with. But I'm a paralegal professionally. So that whole trial was like a sham to me. So I still don't think that he shot her. So just that, and I saw the celebration. It kind of took me back to earlier in the year when Kevin Samuels passed and everybody well, not everybody, but many sisters, loose term, sisters danced on his grave. Then the situation came up with Gervonta, and it just sparked something because I've never really talked about it publicly. What happened? A few people that know me know what happened. I've gotten backlash for that for years because originally, so now I get to what the stories and videos are about.
Right.
So appreciate that, Barry. So essentially I was in a serious domestic violence situation, probably about 14 years ago now, 2008.
Okay.
Long story short, had a female friend. She ran into some trouble. I allowed her to move in. One thing led to another. We're in a relationship. It's going back and forth. She had a whole bunch of childhood trauma. I didn't even, again, that speaks to what you're talking about. We couldn't name it back then. I didn't have words for it. I was 26 at the time.
Yeah.
First time, living with a woman that wasn't my mama. So, the emotions are there, things like that, and all that childhood trauma started to kind of rear its head. We were friends before. I had an idea that she had been through some stuff, but not to that extent. What I ended up finding out, and when it did come out, I basically came home one day. She was in the room crying, one bedroom, one bath apartment, one way in, one way out, first apartment, all that jazz that most of us have been through as a 20-something-year-old. So I come home, she's crying. I just give her a space. The door's closed, so I don't even go in, don't even undress from work. Let her have her time. She comes out after she's done, and she starts flipping. Oh, you didn't hear me in there crying? Like, it went from depressed sadness to like complete anger. Oh, you didn't hear me in there crying? I'm like, I heard you, but any other time, again, I've known her for some years. Any other time I've reached out, tried to be there for you, open up or whatnot, you kind of pushed me away. So I just wanted to give you your space this time. Apparently that was the wrong time to do that. Argument ensues for hours. I'm tired. I'm working on bank trucks at the time. I got to be at the job at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to bed. Snatch the covers off me. I'm trying to walk away, go in the bedroom, because at that time I like, you had the bedroom, I sleep on the couch. Trying to walk away, go in the bedroom, throws herself across the door, like, no, we're going to talk about it now. Like, every stereotypical thing you can think of, it happened. We got to talk about this now, that type of thing. So I'm walking away from, again, like, look, I'm tired, I gotta go bed, I don't have time. She catches me. Boom. And those are some of the pictures that you see in the second video that I put up, because I ended up taking pictures that night because I had scratches in my face, and the pictures really don't do it justice because kind of swole up the next day. But she starts hitting me. I'm trying to grab her hands, do the whole, like I said, Chris Rock, I may not hit you, but I'll shake the shit out. It's crazy how this stuff makes for good comedy, but it's not funny in the situation. So I'm trying to grab her hands, stop. This goes on for like 30 minutes, y'all. I wish I was exaggerating. So I finally walk away from her. I'm like, look, I'm trying to get out the door. The one way in, one way out. That's why I put that part of the story. Again, throws herself. No, we're going to talk about this now. Boom, catches me again. This time, I flipped. I backhand her. She falls. I get on top of her, and I just start strangling her. And I'm choking her. I swear to God, I had an out-of-body experience. When you hear people say that, give it some grace.
Yeah.
Because it happened. I'm standing in the corner watching me choke her, telling myself to let her go.
Yeah. So, and when you said that in the video, it really smacked me because when I was younger, I wouldn't have out of body. I would just black out. I don't mean I'm passed out. I would just black out. And when I would come to, others would tell me what I did. And so when you said that, that's what hit me. It was like, there's a point where there's a different side of you that will take over, especially if you're physically assaulted, and you can't even sit there and tell people what you did in certain circumstances. So, definitely important to know how you navigate and handle violence. But please continue.
Yeah. So, and one part I did leave out. I did try to call the police. You can also see that in the video. Again, it's 2008. I got my little Samsung flip phone, the little thin one. Back in the day, I'm trying to call the police. She snatches it, breaks it in half. Throws one part in the living room because, during the argument, I was like, look, you got to go. I had finally got to the door, and thinking back, I should have just left. But my pride and ego, that's why I say I almost did it to myself. She, throws the other part of the phone out the door, goes to the door, closes the door. And that's how we got in the situation where she clocks me that last time. And, I ended up choking her or whatever. So I had tried to call the police, tried to walk away, tried to talk her down. I'm going down the checklist of what you're supposed to do or whatnot.
Right.
So I end up getting my work cell phone. Again, I worked on bank trucks at the time. And I never took home my electronic leash, is what I called it. I hated getting those late night calls, early morning calls, and I already got to be at the job at 6. Why are you calling me? So I used to leave my phone at the job all the time. For whatever reason, that day I left, something told me, just take the phone, charge it up, just cause. And I'm grateful that I did. I can't make this shit up. I take it home. So that's the only phone that I have to try to call help. So first person I call is mama. Hey, mama, XYZ happened. She on the phone, oh Lorden, but look, I gotta call the police. Like she's not breathing.
Wow.
Hang up with my mom. I'm able to call the police. She starts coughing and coming to. So again, I put the phone down, go into baby, I'm sorry, come on, because I'm legit thinking I just killed the woman that I love, because I truly did love her. She comes to, right back at it. It's like she caught her second win. It's like me choking her out was halftime.
Wow.
It just gave her enough energy, and that's when she got up. I'm like out the door on the phone with the police. We're going around the car like some children playing tag. And like the thin line between love and hate, the Martin movie. Yeah, I just need to talk to you.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, this bitch crazy for real. Like, finally get the police on the phone. They're on their way. So I shoot back upstairs, close the door, lock her out, put the couch behind the door. When I say she kicked the door in, she kicked the door in. You can see that in the second video as well. I put all those pictures up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of part one, what happened. And then part two is where I'm thinking I've matured, she's matured. We had kind of kept in touch. Like, it was years before we spoke again.
Yeah.
But maybe around, I'll say 2011, 12, something like that.
How many years later would you say that was?
That was probably about 3 to 4.
Okay.
So I'm thinking she's matured, and then we kind of get in an argument. Excuse me. I'm not living where she's living. She's not living where I'm living. So it was different. Could just let it go. Fast forward again. This is part 2 and part 2.5, as I called it, because it happened back to back. 2018, we kind of rekindle things going again. But at that time, well, after 2008 happened, of course, I met somebody else. We kind of had a thing going. But she ended up having a daughter. I did the quote unquote simp thing. So now I'm stepdad, but her daughter's the only daughter that, you know, I mean, I'm the only dad that her daughter knows. So I wasn't going to leave her. So by the time 2008 comes back around, me and the first ex kind of started rekindling. And by then she's gotten married, had 2 kids. And so I'm thinking, okay, if this is going to work this time, and I told her, like, we got to be a family. Like, we can't do this. I had been to Guantanamo because I'm in the military. I had been to Guantanamo. Everything ain't working right when I get back. It is what it is, whole separate story. But confide in her. I go to therapy, start sharing some things in therapy, and she's like, oh, she's at the house now. My therapist was an older Black woman. She cautioned me against it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, you know, it's been 10 years. You know, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. Long story short, she played the game well. 2018 doesn't go well either. Long drag out fight, nothing physical after that. We split up, but her and my oldest daughter had a relationship. I never got between them because, you know, all intents and purposes, as crazy as she was, we're just not good together. She was a good mentor for my daughter, as crazy as it sounds.
Right.
Because she's professional, smart, all that stuff. Still to this day, like I said in my video, she's still one of the smartest people I've ever met. That was a dangerous thing. So brothers, watch out for that. Because she knew how to manipulate, and she played it well.
Yeah.
So
and people misunderstand that a lot. People think that, you know, the red flags are just easily visible. And the day you met her, she was swinging at you, so you should have known it. How long did it take before you saw that side of her really come out after you met her? I want you to
wow, because again, we were friends. I guess I was the beta male orbiter. You know, she, oh, I like you more as a friend. All right, cool. She did her thing. I went and did my thing. So I had never seen her in a relationship from like, mind you, I've known her since 2001. We didn't officially get together until 2008.
Wow.
When this happened. So I had known her 7 years.
Right.
Like I said, known a little bit of her family history. I knew, you know, where she worked, that type of just cordial friends. We always kept in touch. Like, you know, that friend that, hey, I'm in town. It's been a minute. You get back up, you pick up where you left off, movies, dinner, hang out, good laughs, all that.
Right.
And we could always talk as well. So again, I've known her for 21 years now.
Mhm.
So I really did not see that side of her until it happened the first time in
Right.
2008.
Okay.
But because there wasn't any physical violence in 2018, I'm thinking, she matured, blah, blah, blah. But it just took a turn. She wasn't like, it's crazy. She couldn't accept that I had moved on and I was taking care of this other child, even though she wasn't biologically mine. She couldn't accept that. But I was supposed to accept that she had got married and actually had 2 kids.
Okay.
So 2.5. Just giving you guys the snapshots. The video is a little bit longer, but 2.5 is 2021. She's working in the city. Something comes up with a job. She just needs to stay the weekend. My daughter is older, and she's, I haven't seen her. Da 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 da. So instead of for her, I really caved for my daughter. That's the other thing you got to watch out for, brothers, because they will use the kids. So my daughter's 16 at the time. I don't think she's even thinking in them terms. She just wants a woman to hang out. I'm a single dad.
Right.
And when I say single dad, not taking anything away from the brothers that have visitation or things like that, because I was in that space as well. But I had my daughter the last 4 years of high school. So she lived in my house. So it was just me and my baby. So she wasn't around a lot of female energy. So when she asked, I obliged. Cool. So something comes up. I let her stay the weekend. Hey, I thought I was going to be able to go out. Do you mind if I stay another week? That turns to 2 weeks.
Okay. That
turns to a month.
Wow.
But again, so here we are in the same situation, right? A petty argument over like literally where we're going to eat.
Okay.
Blows up, and it's like, oh shit, she's the same person.
Okay.
And by now, I have this, red pill knowledge or whatever, and I'm hearing other brothers' stories, and I'm seeing her and her actions, and it just went left.
Yeah.
What the camel, the straw that broke the camel's back. She knows I have to get up and go to work at like 5 this time, and it was like I'm reliving 2008 again. She wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, standing over me, and I don't know if you guys have seen that. What's the Goodfellas?
Okay.
Where he wakes up and his wife has the gun in his face.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah. So I don't know if you have ever woken up and had somebody like looking down on you. That shit is weird and scary. So she just calls my name. I look up and she's just staring. You really that mad at me? Is this what we're doing? But when I say it, I said it in the video, I tell all my homeboys, I have never been cussed out so politely in my life. I am the worst father. I was never there for my daughter. The streets raised her. Again, military had suicidal ideation before. Next time you find yourself with a gun in your mouth, do the world a favor, pull the trigger. I don't need you. The boys don't need you, because she had boys. They don't need you. Now, mind you, I'm the only father they know. Even with me and her off and on like we were, I still spent more time with them boys than their dad.
Yeah.
But all that went out the window because she couldn't get her way.
Right.
So this is how I knew I had finally matured, because, like I said, 26-year-old me, I told you what I did. So I just let her go off. She goes back upstairs. I go to sleep, wake up 2 hours later, get ready, go to work. Lunchtime, I text her, hey, last night wasn't cool. I thought things were going to be different this time. You got to go. So I gave her a certain day during the week to go. But brothers, this is, again, hate to say it. I know it's sisters in the chat, but she's never yours. It's just your turn. When I told her she had a certain day in the week to go, she was out of my house in 2 hours.
Wow.
Everything was packed up in the car, gone, because I could see her on my Ring camera. So I'm coming home from work thinking, let me deal with this, because I know she wasn't able to get everything. She's going to have to, she got to come back and get something. When I say my house looked like she had never been there, like it had never been there.
Okay.
And one thing I want to inject. So the first part. So guys, please do go watch the videos. There again, as Doc said, they're relatively short. I think the first one is like 25 minutes. The second one, I get a little bit more in depth. It's like 45 minutes. But I didn't get arrested that first night in 2008. I didn't get arrested.
Yeah.
And the way I was able to escape that, when the police got there, they saw my face. They go up there, start talking to her. Again, the whole thin line between love and hate thing. She ruffled up her hair, slid the bra strap down like I was just in there dragging her.
Wow.
Again, I told you I worked on bank trucks at the time. She hit him with he has guns in the house. So a male cop, it was a male and a female cop. The male looks at me, sir, do you have guns in the house? Yes, sir, I do, but my gun is in the car. I work for such and such a company. I'm licensed to carry as as an individual and on my job. I have to show them both of my license, my driver's license, my permit to carry. So by the grace of God, they get another call. The male cop leaves. The female is the senior on the scene. So she stays. We're kind of in separate rooms. Things is kind of calmed down. So what saved me, her name wasn't on the lease.
Okay.
So it was my apartment. So I just asked them, I don't even want you to arrest her. I just want y'all to make her leave.
Right.
So I don't even think anybody was going to get arrested that night. She starts flipping out. He almost killed me. You're not going to arrest him. That like she played it up.
Right.
But she had the wrong cop that day. Female, that type of energy wasn't going, because she challenged her. What, ma'am? I just need you to leave. I'm not leaving. You not arresting him? Don't you see? She pulled out that nightstick. Ma'am. She's like, you know what? I'm not even going to argue with you. Turn around. Do you see his face? Turn around. Laid the cuffs on. So she's the one that got arrested. And I should have made that clear in the beginning, but I wanted to make sure I touched on that.
Right.
Because it could have went so different, because the male was looking for it. It was two white people as well. Both of the police officers was white, but the male was looking for a reason to put my hands behind my back.
Right.
But the senior, again, she had a little bit more sense. They could see clearly I got the worst of it. So I mean that.
Wow.
He just reared his head again years later, and I wasn't going to go through it. So again, what saved me, her name isn't on my mortgage. Like this is my house. So brothers, stop moving in with women. I try not to tell other men what to do, but vehemently stop moving in with them. If your name is not on any piece of paperwork, like I'm telling you this from personal experience, and again, my professional side as a paralegal, I can't tell you what to do legally. I'm not an attorney. I can't hold myself out to be one. I want to be very clear on that. But I can tell you that ain't going to go well for you. Right. Stop moving in with them and be very cautious about letting them move in with you.
Indeed.
So, that's kind of my story, but please do go look at the videos. Like I said, I get a little bit more in depth.
Well, tell me this. First and foremost, I want to thank you for being, willing to share your experience, because one of the problems with, social media, YouTube, is everybody gets to be anonymous. And when someone like yourself shares your experience, people get to judge from a distance. But I'm pretty sure if we could file through everybody's life, we find we've all done some things that we wouldn't want publicized. So I applaud you for sharing it, because I think it's going to, it's a cautionary moment that, and I think this was the intention behind sharing it. So brothers know not to make the same mistakes. And this is one of the things we do. So I appreciate that. And I want to thank you for being willing to do that.
Thank you.
I want to say to my listeners and my subscribers, I am going to bring people on in a little bit, but I want nothing but respect, as far as how we engage this discussion. So keep the disrespect to yourselves if you have that intention. Beyond that, I do want to talk about the things you would caution another man, particularly a young man, to avoid based on what you experienced. But I just want people to be clear that at the end of the day, it's not as hard as you think to find yourself in these situations. We can talk about ways to prevent it, and I'm fine with that, but I don't want that to happen at the expense of respect in this dialogue. So I just want to be clear about that. But what would you say to a young man, most especially, other than, you said, don't put, don't move into her, so on and so forth. Is there anything else from your experience you would share with a young man about what to avoid?
Um, it's hard because we all have it, but there's degrees to it.
Yeah.
Avoid women with past trauma, past family trauma, especially when it's internal. Like like the trauma she experienced as a child, that was literally passed down from her parents.
Wow.
Down. So when it's that close, it's hard for somebody to shake that because that's literally their life. They're in-house with their abusers a lot of time. So they start to understand abuse or arguments and chaos and non-structure as love. So it sounds harsh, but do yourself a favor because you're not a certified clinician.
Mm.
No matter how much she tells you, oh, I have this, or I'm bipolar, no disrespect to anybody with those type of illnesses, but as a young man in your 20s, you're not equipped to deal with that. Because I thought I was. I thought I could love her through it.
Right. Most people, I would argue, are probably not equipped. And I had some young brothers recently tell me stories about being with women that did have bipolar issues and she didn't share that until years later. And even in your situation, she apparently knew how to mask it in terms of her, her overall demeanor. So, we got to figure out ways to vet that go beyond the surface, but at the same time, some of this stuff, can be elusive to anyone.
And a big thing is, to this day, I literally have like some type of PTSD. A big thing is the sex, because it'll be a knockdown, drag out fight.
Mm.
And when I say that's the best she gonna put it on you, like to make up because she knows she's wrong. A lot of times women ain't gonna apologize, bro. But they know how to use what they gonna use what they had to get what they want, so to speak, if you catch my drift. And I don't know if you guys are Game of Thrones fans, but she got that fire, she got that Dracarys, as I call it. Like she gonna put it on you. So to this day, bro, I swear to you, because of her, I do not like makeup sex. If I argue with a woman, like you're probably not gonna hear from me for like a week because of that. Like I can't do it. Like you just pissed me off, and now an hour or two later, I'm sorry, and try to rub up against it's gonna be me and the PlayStation. Like that's I can't do it because she used it as a manipulation tactic, and when that light bulb went off, it was like, and I can't do it. Others have tried and they have failed miserably. I can't do the makeup sex. You got to give me time to completely calm down.
We talked off air about relationship PTSD and how you can have that after these kind of situations. But yeah, sex is a powerful part in this dynamic. And if you've never had the kind of sex you're talking about, you are not prepared for how it can be used to kiss you.
And what's crazy is that thing you asked her to do that she said she would never do, now all of a sudden it's an option. Like,
what?
But that's one of the reasons I gave that story, because I'm a very humble brother. I really am. But I know I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm the only guy going through it. So that's another reason I shared that story, because I know I'm not the only one. I can't be crazy. I know I'm not the only one.
No. I've and that's the thing. I've had too many brothers reach out to me about this, and I want to be clear. This goes across race. It goes across class. It goes across occupation. I've heard this from brothers who are damn near on the street, all the way to brothers that run, CEOs of their own companies who are making millions. We've seen this. We just saw it with Gervonta Davis. Right?
It doesn't matter when you find we have to get better as men vetting these women. And excuse me, the reason why I say that, I was so forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Simping, beta, yes, whatever you want to call it, but being forgiving, being humble, trying to love her through it. Because when you meet somebody who has been through a trauma, especially some type of a sexual trauma, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings if you have any type of heart in you at all. Mm-hmm. So I gave a lot of passes that I shouldn't have because of, it's just something triggered her.
Yeah.
She's having a bad day. It's one of those times something, a memory came back. I gave pass after pass after pass, forgiveness, all this stuff that we're told we're supposed to do as men.
Yeah.
And more of us do it than what a lot of people realize. And we don't talk about it enough. That was another reason I wanted to talk about it. Like, it has to be said, because as long as we keep letting people have these tropes and traits of you're a simp, you're a sucker, oh, it's all your fault 100% of the time, take accountability for you, brother. You cannot, I can't take accountability for her hitting me. I can only take accountability for me being in that space that night. And me being in that space means I can't be as good of a person and opening my home to a lot of people like I would. I can't be. So we have to be careful about that when we're saying, hey, it's all your fault. So if that means that means no matter how I'm treated by other people, it's my fault. So that means I got to cut people off. Yeah. And we can't do that if we're really trying to build a community or even a brotherhood just from this space. Because somebody's going to make a mistake somewhere.
That's one of the things that I'm happy about with this space, because y'all got to know the stuff we hear on online now, the stuff brothers say to each other that's so common. I didn't hear these things 30 years ago. I didn't hear these things being bantied about like it's just common knowledge. I grew up in an era, especially in the Black community, where from parents to pop culture, everything was about catering to women, making them feel good, seducing them, loving them, sacrificing yourself. There was very little out there for what kind of standards you should have. And a lot of the stuff we treat as common sense now, I didn't know this. So, there are whole periods of time where I'm thinking, if the relationship isn't going right, it's my fault and I need to sacrifice more. Yep. That was the only thought process I had learned, but particularly from pop culture, that was what I was supposed to do, because the onus of the happiness level in the relationship was based on how much I had or hadn't sacrificed. That's all I knew. So, even the thing, so there's so many things, the stories that we could talk about that by today's standards in this space, brothers would be, well, how dare you? How could you do that? Whatever. Yeah. It's like, come on, don't get it twisted. The reason this space is so popular for Black men is we're hearing things that many of us never got to hear before, that we're starting to take as basic and common sense, but it wasn't common sense 30 years ago.
It wasn't.
So if one brother said, I put up with that, well, that's well and good for you. But we didn't know that. That wasn't a common conversation. And I want to make sure that young cats, especially who are coming into this, hear these stories, because they're real. They're real as far as what people are going through, and people are still going through it. This isn't new.
It's not new. Unfortunately, it's not going anywhere anytime soon until, again, I do put a lot of onus on the men, but we can't put onus on ourselves and not have the conversation. That was, again, another reason why I wanted to have the conversation and put it out there. Because, again, I know I'm not the only one that's going through it. But when I started up my channel, I would have guys hit me up on Facebook and say, hey, man, I like your post, but me and my wife share a Facebook page, or stuff like that. And these are married men,
right?
Or men in long-term relationships and things of that nature. It's like, bro, why don't we talk? Like, we just got to get it out. But it's still that. And it's a healthy fear, because the system is going to system, as I say.
Right.
You end up in family court and things like that. But I know I've had to fight through a lot. I've gone through a lot of frustration, depression periods, things like that, and still struggle with it. But it helps me, and I know it's helping another brother. And it's something that you just spoke to about, back in the day, 70s, 80s. Like, we're literally socialized.
Yes.
We're socialized, and I often give the example. Okay, there's a little boy on leaving the house. When he leaves the house, who's at the house? Grandmama, mama, auntie, sister.
Yep.
Gets to the school.
Yep.
Who's driving the school bus?
Yep.
An older lady.
Yep.
Who's the crossing guard a lot of times? An older woman.
Yep.
Then he goes in class all day. It's a teacher. Then he goes to lunch. Who does he see? The lunch lady. The only time he's probably going to see a male throughout the day is the custodian and the PE coach.
Get it. Maybe the principal, but how often do you spend time around the principal as a kid?
Exactly.
Just when you're in trouble, really. So
I know brothers that work in education and work in administration in education, in elementary or middle schools, and he's like, bro, I might as well be back in the classroom. As soon as little Tay-Tay starts acting up, and these are Black teachers. I'm in Atlanta, So a lot of the teachers are black, even black female teachers. She may have her own son at the house, but she don't want to deal with somebody else's black son in the classroom. And she sends them in there with Mr. Whoever and the administrator. He said, bro, I spent all day at my computer because I really couldn't leave because they dropped 5 boys in my office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had that experience teaching elementary, middle school, and high school. The moment you come in, a lot of the female teachers and administrators will push over all of the problematic quote unquote boys into your class, and they want you to fix them. And and if you have ideas about programs and things that you can do that might improve the situation, often you'll get denied. They just want you to fix them in silence, go handle them over there, and that's kind of the end of it. So I can't tell you how many brothers I've known that have gone into teaching and they burned out, sometimes even after a year, because you just get this load of the most problematic. And it's based on this idea that, it takes men to mold boys into men. But when you got a given man by himself in a classroom who often is just coming out of school, he's singular, coming out of school, he doesn't have a lot of teaching experience. There's no network with other men. There's no programming. There's no support. There's no budget. It's just him in a classroom, new to teaching, and they just loaded you up with the worst boys in the school and said, fix it. Those brothers, if they survive that, if they don't burn out within a year or two, it's a rare one.
And that's coming. Is interesting you mentioned the burnout, because the brothers I just talked about, in the last 2 years they've left the school system.
Exactly.
Like COVID looked ugly for them initially because of the school shutting down and people in the frustration of having to do education from the house and things like that. But going back into the classroom late 21, early 22, it was like, not again. And they've since left.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I have a female friend that, works in the education system. And she's like, we really need more black men educating these boys. And they can't be, no offense to anybody, but they can't be gay. Like we have no strong heterosexual men just to give them direction and structure. And this is why a lot of the cities look like they look as far as crime with a lot of young men. And it's, again, like you said, it's not just our young men. It's not just black young men.
Yeah, it's a lot of frustration going around with that. But it's draining, it's difficult in that vein, and there needs to be. Matter of fact, there was recently, within the last couple months, there was a conference in DC held around Black education, and it was a brother that attended the conference. He sent me the program, and he was giving me a blow by blow while he was there. And it was supposed to be dealing with black males in education, but the overwhelming majority of the speakers and whatnot were all black females. And so there was only a couple black males that actually even spoke at the event, and he was telling me about the kind of things they were talking about. At some point, black men who are in spaces like that have to assert themselves and say, look, there's a time when black men need to have certain conversations. We need to put forth certain kinds of standards, certain ideas that don't have to be mitigated through whether or not others agree or will allow it. There needs to be a dialogue, and that has to happen on the ground. But taking it back a little bit, I'm gonna send the invite out for people to come up. This will remain nothing but respectful. I appreciate the good brothers' willingness to share, and I know I've had many situations that are similar to different things he said, and based on the feedback I've gotten from men, I'm fairly confident that there are plenty of brothers that can identify. So that said, I put a link out there. You can come up and dialogue. We can focus on things that men can do to protect themselves, things that we can do to make sure we to the best of our ability don't find ourselves in these situations. But I'm also concerned with what you can do when you are in the situation. And like I said, video recording, if you can get that, please do so. You guys know I've had other guests on the show in the past who've shared their video and gone to court with that video, who've shown it to police officers in the midst of the situation, and how that has been a game changer for some.
Saved a life. It's amazing. Can I know what's going on, BJS? But real quick before he jumps in, Doc, you touched on something, and it's something that I like to say. It's not just black men. So what I do tell black men, if a white man can go through this,
right,
I don't think I have to finish that sentence with the brothers.
Yeah.
If a white man in America can go through this, you see that guy just, went through the self-checkout line in Disneyland because of a false
accusation.
accusation from his wife.
Yeah.
So if it can happen to a white man, bro.
Yeah. He knew his career was over. His reputation was shot. He could have won in a court of law and it wouldn't have changed the fact.
I've worked in education before. I still volunteer with children. All it takes is an accusation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Now BGS, shout out to you for coming through. What's good with you, man?
Hey, what's going on? When the sex part resonated with me, because we know that's why we stay.
Good Lord.
We take these broken vessels, man, and that's why we stay.
Oh man.
Because, like you said, it came from our childhood, and men are good at. We think we're good at fixing things.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why we keep going back. Like if you go back once, after that, you keep going back. There's a reason that you keep going back, because you think you can fix it. If I could just fix this little thing, and just calm her down where the demon doesn't come out and attack me, she'd be a good woman. The thing is, that demon, you can't fix that demon. You can't fix that cracked pot. It's got a crack that's been there forever, and it's always going to leak. No matter what you pour into it, it's always going to actually pour back out. So that kind of resonated with me.
But there's something you said in that I think is so key to our socialization. You said you can't fix her. That's precisely what we were taught, especially in the 80s and the 90s. Your job was to not only, what Ayanna Van Zant talked about, stand in it with her.
Right.
Was that you were supposed to be this loving vessel that, and through the power of your love, you were going to heal her. And if you didn't heal her, you were somehow not a good man.
It's your fault. Yeah.
That's what I meant when I said I was trying to love her through it.
Right.
I'm going to love you through all this stuff. And again, young brothers, you are not a clinician.
Yes.
You can give her all the love. When I say I did everything that I knew to do in my power at 26 and at 35, and like I said recently in 2021 at 38.
Right. The Cosby Show was the closest thing that we had in media to a functional man and woman relationship. Even though that wasn't perfect, right? It look through all the movies, all the other examples of black male female relationship. It's always dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Like the first time I saw was Porgy and Bess, right? Dysfunctional relationship with violence included.
Yeah. I was always taught, and I'm glad to have Dead Set. I'm gonna say something before I bring Dead Set into this. Whenever I see Dead Set come up, I'm excited. I know I'm doing well on the show because he don't come up all the time, so he only comes up to drop something heavy. But the whole notion though of loving someone through it, that was a huge part of our socialization, and I want black men to reflect on that. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying reflect on it. Listen to brothers that have done it, and at least learn from that before you find yourself in those kind of situations. Because I think subconsciously, after that type of socialization, part of me might even, what they call that, the broken wing syndrome.
Right.
You're trying to find a demonstration, an opportunity to prove that you can love a black woman through whatever. And it's like, you're setting yourself up for levels of stress and difficulty that you do not have to own. You don't have to carry. It's okay to decide that you're gonna move away from someone, and even when you just first meet them and date them, and once you detect that there's some problems there, it is perfectly okay to say I don't want that. But the way I was socialized, it was like, no, you love whomever, and you give her your all, and you muscle through whatever she.
You gotta fight for it. Even that phrase alone, like think about that. You gotta fight.
Yeah.
See that.
It's those little seeds that are subconsciously planted, and you don't realize it until you're in a fight.
Man, yeah, and you're providing more and more and more, and this woman is getting more and more out of pocket. And the way you're socialized, you say, well, if she's this unhappy, I have to do more. That's the way. That's the detriment of the socialization that I think many black men got in the 80s, 70s, and 80s and whatnot. But let me go ahead and get Dead Set to come in on this and weigh in on it. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up? My thing is,
that damn voice.
It's a funny thing. Voice. I caught. There was something he said that was very poignant, and I'm going to get to that. I'm just going to give a little bit of my philosophy that I picked up when I was in my mid to late 20s.
Mm.
And I picked up this philosophy. I never dropped it. And that was never walk backwards, period. I don't care what I'm leaving behind. I don't care how good I thought it was. I don't even care if on my way out, things were just getting great. I never walked backwards. It was just move forward, move forward, move forward, move forward. And what you said something about like guys saying, well, you notice the signs early, or you notice that you should have seen these signs early. You know how that stuff goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted him to point out how many years he knew her beforehand, because we all act like, oh, you should have seen it.
Yeah, we don't see that. I mean,
No,
even those of us. Yeah.
But if I ask people honestly, who've been saying that, can we sift through the details of your life, and you tell me how many relationships where you just saw it? I mean, come on, that's not how this goes. Well, go ahead.
But the other aspect about it is that as men, even though we would see some of those signs, in the process, we're weighing the pros and cons.
Right.
So it's not like we're going at it and saying, oh, we're just ignoring it. No, we're saying, okay, this is a good, this may outweigh this. We're weighing that stuff because we know that we're going to get the same thing from the next woman anyway. And so it's just like, that's the risk that we take. And I thought that was a point.
And another thing, I know all of us have probably heard it at some point, whether you're sharing a story with, especially if you share it with a female, whether it's a family member or a colleague, a friend, you're telling her what you're dealing with in a relationship, and it turns out that her lady brain, as I say, in her lady brain, it's, oh, you're going to lose a good woman that way by just walking away. So now you have this fear, you have this stigma of, oh shit, I don't want to lose this good woman.
Yeah.
It'll be my fault. But how many times do we hear women or even men say, hey, you're going to lose a good dude like that? It's rare, if ever. But it's commonplace for us to be told, you're going to lose a good woman that way. Again, placing blame back on us. And nobody wants to be looked at as the reason we lost the game. You know what I'm saying? You missed a wide open layup. You had this great woman, but in the locker room, she's cursing you out. Just a basketball analogy. Like she's flipping out and nobody else sees it. Why? Because it's in the locker room.
Yeah.
Well, with me, there ain't no such thing as a good woman anymore. So it's just what it is.
Well, this might be a good opportunity though for me to ask Dead Set. Kofa and I were talking about relationship PTSD. Can you relate to that concept? We don't even need a verbal definition. I just want to know, can you relate to that at all?
Yeah, and for this last marriage, I ended up in the mental institution for 7 days.
Wow.
That was in January of 21.
Wow.
Most people don't know that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, that was after she made the accusations about me and my kids.
Wow.
And I had trouble recovering from that.
Wow.
Because that's something you only heard about other people. You never imagine that it's going to happen to you.
Were the children, can I ask you if the kids are old enough to maybe remember that later on down the line, or like be cognizant of what the accusation was?
The oldest is, in fact, because I'm still fighting this battle. In fact, I got court this month and next month.
That's wild.
What they found out, because first of all, the police ruled everything out. They was like, and the state ruled everything out. They were just like, this just didn't happen.
Wow.
But like I said, judges being what they are, they took my children anyway, because like you said, the mere accusation was enough. And he's got the report sitting on his desk saying that it never happened. He was like, well, I don't care.
Wow.
So that's one aspect of it. As far as their ages go, my son at the time, he was 3. And my daughter is now, I think she's 9 now. She knows, but my ex-wife is a teacher. And so what she did was she's been basically coaching the children to say terrible things. And what we're going to court about now is I filed perjury charges. I filed it with the district attorney.
Okay.
because she said one thing in one hearing, and then in the second investigation, she said something completely different. I was like, that's classic perjury.
Yep.
So that's it is what it is. You know, I'm not even mad. It's just fight and then get you out of my life and me carry on.
See, this is why we're talking about law enforcement / assassin proxy threat. You know, we're talking about the ways in which these kind of institutions, and we can include family court after the fact as well, right, are used in ways that are weaponized against Black men, most particularly. And you know, there's not a whole lot you can do once you're in that situation, but fight through it, and that can take years.
Mhm.
It can
Yeah.
take years.
I got two homeboys. One played in the NBA. One is a music manager. Like, he's in the music industry. Brothers are well off. Between those two men, they have spent well over $500,000 in family court fees trying to get their kids, just between those two.
It's a funny thing because I'm about to drop a video. You know what it's going to be about, BGS, because I sent you the article. And I'm not going to go too much into it, but we're talking about false accusations.
Yeah.
The national, it was the NIH and the National Conference for Men did a study, and they did broad studies. They took studies from like India, the United States Air Force, and whatnot. False accusations by the feminists are stated to be somewhere between 2 and 8%, and that's according to the FBI statistics. What they found was when the prosecutors were their statistic or their study or what their numbers were, it was up as high as 65%.
What?
And the Air Force found theirs to be at 41% false accusations, usually against men, and for the reasons where the women were trying to use it as an alibi or to get some type of personal gain.
Yeah.
So between 65 and 41%, you're looking at an average of just over 50%.
Yeah.
See, my theory is it's also a feature in human nature. If you give somebody or some demographic carte blanche access to a certain type of power that they can exact with no reservations, no checks and balances, no evidence even required, you can make a false accusation against a celebrity and your name doesn't even come up in the articles that cover the false accusation. When you give one demographic that much power, people are going to exploit it. It just is what it is. That's
They found out that with the Brazilian street children when they actually exempted them from any kind of punishment, right? And they went on a crime wave for like 10 years where the little kids were actually shooting people in the street.
Wow.
So if you exempt people from any kind of punishment or checks, that's what's going to happen.
That might be coming around. I think then New York just passed a law. They're not arresting any juveniles like 12 years for any type of crime unless it's a violent crime or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, with that was in Brazil. It was even including a violent crime. They just wouldn't arrest them.
That's crazy. New York just had. Well, I just saw the article. I just read the. I didn't get a chance to read the full article, but it was like the title, like they're not going to charge juveniles under 12 and under for any crimes unless it's a violent crime or a loss of life type of crime.
Wow, we're gonna see a lot of juvenile drug dealers, and that's what's gonna happen.
BGS, what year was that? Did that take place in Brazil?
Oh, in Brazil, because they actually did a P show. They actually did a story about the street children. I think it was the late 90s, if I'm not saying the 1990s.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that movie City of God.
1980s or 1990. Well, City of God was something about gangsters, but there's a movie called P show about violent children in Brazil. I do believe that was either in the 80s or 90s. So I think this was.
Damn.
That's crazy.
Yeah. When they had to, the only way to stop it, they actually went on a cleansing campaign. The army did of actually cleansing these children because they couldn't put them in check. So they just started wholesale killing them.
Wow.
So they went to the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you give anybody, any human being too much power, any kind of exemption, they're gonna take advantage of it.
Well, this is one of the reasons that I want us to talk about this in relation to intimate, relations in terms of the Black community. Because again, if you give one demographic unchecked access to use institutions to the expense of another demographic within the community, that is a way of destabilizing and underdeveloping a community from within.
Right.
Yes.
And I want to be clear about that, because people just say, well, oh, you're just talking about women because you hate women. No, I'm talking about women and men because the strategies used to undermine the Black community were structural, they were strategic, they were not accidental, and you can see it expressed in policy. This is why we talk about this, because we've talked about every element of the Black experience except the way Black men are treated in regard to the community and in terms of gender issues. We dance around that. We talk about sexuality, we talk about sex and gender, we talk about women, we talk about LGBT,
Right.
and the rest of it we go into, the history of racism, we talk about classism, we talk about all these other dimensions to the Black experience.
Yeah.
But we've avoided structural misandry. And
Yeah.
that's why I talk about this subject so much, because so many people in my position, academics or whatever, do not talk about it.
Yeah. And it's
So just real quick, but these same brothers will come home, reach out to me under the table about the things they're noticing,
right.
confirm a lot of what we talk about, but they won't publish it. They won't talk about it in mainstream. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the Violence Against Women's Act actually went after white men. Okay. Black women have never, ever. Cause when I was a kid in Texas in the early '60s, right, my mother could literally call any cop, have my father picked up on her word. Okay.
Wow.
On her word. Now she would have to bail him out because he actually was a breadwinner. Okay, so that was the old two-step, right? Pick him up on Friday, hold him till Sunday. She go bail him out on Sundays in time for work on Monday. Okay, but at any time, if she felt that she didn't want to take being hit or yelled at or whatever, she could literally just pick up a phone, call the cop. The cop would actually come pick him up and take him to jail. So it's always been that way for Black men.
Wow.
Just off a word.
That's off the word. Yeah, come get him. White cops cops have never had any problem picking up a Black man for anything.
No,
I think in your case, I don't know if you mentioned it, but were you in court?
Yeah,
and the judge looked at you.
Yeah, we went to.
Wait a minute, I'm not on trial yet.
We went to court. So the first incident back in 2008, we went to court 3 times behind that. I never got a chance to speak. Judge didn't look at me, talked to her the whole time, moved it to another date 3 times. It gets down to the 3rd time, they're getting ready to hand down a sentencing. The cop is reading down the charges or whatever, looking dead at me. I just had to blurt out, I'm like, Your Honor, I didn't get arrested that night. He shuffles the papers. No apology. Turns to her. Miss so-and-so, do you understand the charges brought against you?
That is so difficult.
So when we're telling these stories, and say we all separate, go back to our individual lives. When you having these conversations at the water cooler at work, nobody's believing you. You sound crazy, even if they know somebody who's been through similar. I've had these conversations with women and men, and looked me dead in the face, was like, nah, man, you did something.
You did something. What did you do?
That's the reason why.
And then proceed to tell me about their brother or their cousin going through something.
That's the reason why.
Like the cognitive dissonance. Like it's so many, and it's sad because it's so many men that cannot.
It can't process
that.
It can't process it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the reason why every time I hear about this, the first question I ask is, did you provoke him? And every time I ask that question, there ain't no provocation that could cause him to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no. But my question for you, Kofa, is you really love this woman, right?
I did.
And my guess is you probably envisioned yourself having children with her.
Yep.
That a lot of guys underestimate how powerful that urge is.
They do. I have a friend right now, no kids, never been married, and the fellas are telling like, bro, you in a good position. He not hearing it. That man wants a family. He is very like he wants a black wife. He's very pro-black. Nothing's wrong with that. But like what you just said, people underestimate that. Like men want to see a part of themselves. We may not carry the child, but still, you want to know you left a legacy. This is why when there is paternity fraud, when it comes out years later and the man finds out that he's not the father, he still stays. That's his connection to having some type of legacy, even if it's not biologically his child. And people don't understand that because mentally we're already there as fathers. And I say it all the time. A lot of times women think motherhood. As men, we're thinking family. It may not sound like it. We're thinking wife and kids. They're thinking motherhood.
Now there was a question in the chat. I lost it though, but it was posed to BGS when you were telling the story about your mother and the police. You said at one point when she didn't want to be hit anymore,
it would be hit. Or she would provoke it, or she would start it, or even if he just yelled at it, it looked like he was going to hit her. Okay, all she had to do was pick up the phone. Okay.
Now, see, I want to clarify because, and this is one of the reasons I was so drawn to Kofa's story. And I said this earlier. We don't talk about provocation. The idea is just like what Dead Set just said. In terms of provocation, there's no grounds whatsoever that's considered acceptable that justifies putting hands on a woman.
Right.
When the reverse is in question, just the possibility of infidelity for many is enough to justify whatever she wants to do to a man.
Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah.
It's 2023. Women still celebrating Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah.
For anybody young enough that may not know, Google Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah, you make them ready.
Yep. And anybody from the South knows about the midnight and the water boiling on the stove in the back.
Oh yeah.
You know what that is, okay?
Yeah.
You know what that is.
Tell them.
Yeah.
In other words, okay, say it's Friday night, you just got paid. The husband's been out, probably drinking or whatever it is, and she wants to confront him, and she wanted to let him know not to come home tonight. So she puts the hot with the big pot of boiling water on the back stove, so when he comes to the back, he can hear it. In other words, not tonight. Okay, so he's gonna go whatever he did is go back where he came from because there's gonna be violence that night.
Hey, somebody said hot grits. Get that Al Green treatment.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's when they want to damage you. Okay.
Yeah. Bacon grease. Listen to these men coming forward with this. It sounds like jokes, but it's not jokes.
No,
it's not. And the sad thing, again, like I was talking about with the Chris Rock thing, unfortunately, we're such a creative people, but unfortunately, we turn a lot of trauma into really great stand-up comedy. Right. But it's really rooted in some deep trauma that is screwed our community. I know another guy just had a baby. This some years ago. The baby was kind of a newborn. Him and his wife get in an argument. He's holding the baby, rocking the baby or whatever. They getting into an argument. He's like, "Look, I got the baby, whatever." His wife grabs a butcher knife and comes at him while he's holding their child. He clocks her. She falls out, and he's like, "Oh my God, I just hit my wife, blah, blah, blah." He's panicking. She calls the police. Police come. Guess who gets arrested? They see the butcher knife.
Yeah.
She tells them, "Yeah, I did come at him." He says, "I was holding the baby at the time." He still went to county.
Yeah.
And when he came out, guess who felt bad? He felt bad because he hit his wife, not because he potentially saved himself or his child. Like it's wild, bro. Like men, we have to get out of this space. I'm not saying go out here and just beat women and all that stuff. But when situations like that happen, you have to make the best choice for yourself, either before, during, or after. If it happens after, it may be time to leave, because that's when something's going to get violent. My mom told me something a long time ago. Never fall so deep in love with somebody you can't see them with somebody else.
Oh, damn.
Because if that day comes, you're going to try to stop that, or they're going to try to stop you.
Well, let me before we get Adam in here, I'm always glad to have Adam come up. I want to share a couple of things with you guys since it's on topic. So the first off is to remind people about this case here. Some of you may remember. So this brother here is Michael Craig. And Michael Craig, I'm going to put this link in the chat. Michael Craig was a brother who, okay, we're getting some feedback from somebody's mic. Might need to mute. Okay, so Michael Craig was a brother who apparently his son called the police because his wife had, I believe, a knife to his neck, and when the police showed up, they shot him. Right, the son called on behalf of the father. The police showed up. They shot him, even though she had a knife to his throat. So when I talk about police being called as a potential life death, especially when we know it's a false accusation, she's done this, she's done this simply because she can. That alone can be life or death. So that's the first thing I wanted to be clear about. Let me see. The second has to do with some of the data I want to share with you guys. Let me go ahead and enlarge this a bit. So we can just kind of see this is not coming out of nowhere, right? So if you look closely at this, I'm gonna take the bar off display name real quick. So this is data dealing with sex of perpetrator and lifetime reports of sexual violence of male victims. I want you to kind of look through this a little bit. And I know this is a lot. Some of you can screenshot this if you can, so you can look at it more thoroughly later. But some of this data is incredibly important to look at. So we're talking here about male victims, right? So you see the first breakdown in terms of RAPE, right, where it lists the majority of males. And then when you look at made to penetrate, right, if you're not familiar, this is and this is not, believe it or not, not limited to heterosexual males by any means. But when someone forces another to penetrate them, it could be blackmail, it could be a number of different ways to do it. You can see female perpetrators are nearly at 80%, right? Over 15% males. So when it comes to RAPE, you see it's listed as mostly male perpetrators. When it comes to made to penetrate, it's mostly female. And then we go to sexual coercion, right? Where people are coerced into sexual engagement. 81% female perpetrators, 14.5% male perpetrators. And you can see the numbers estimated on the side, right? So look at the number of men. So female perpetrators, over 5.3 million as far as made to penetrate, right? Sexual coercion, 5.4 million women, 81%. Unwanted sexual contact, 53% female perpetrators. That's over 6.6 million female perpetrators, right? And then non-contact unwanted sexual experiences, 48% male perpetrators, 37.6% female. So I wanted to kind of show you some of the stuff we're talking about. This one, lifetime and 12-month prevalence of sexual violence by race and ethnicity, U.S. men. This is 2010, 2012. This is NISVS data. And you can kind of see here when it comes to black men, right? Contact sexual violence, estimated number of victims, 830,000. Made to penetrate, 272,000. Non-contact unwanted sexual experiences, 465,000. See, I show this stuff because one of the things I hear in the space a lot is we shouldn't talk about victimization. We should stop talking about it. We shouldn't deal with it at all. But here's the problem. When you look at the data, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And by avoiding it, by not looking at it, these kind of things become problematic. We have to look at the data. We have to understand the situations you're in. Otherwise, you find yourself in situation after situation like Kofa's story, and there's no coherent structure that we as men refer to talk about how to not only get out of it, but how to prevent yourselves from getting in it and passing on that information to our sons and our grandsons. See, in the last number of decades, we have not had those kinds of conversations. We're starting to have them now. I'm seeing young men now listening to spaces like this and learning and picking up data to protect themselves, right? That doesn't start until you first identify there's a problem. So avoiding dealing with these issues, you can try it if you want to, but all you're going to do is ensure that the next generation have the same problem that we had and it doesn't change. I'm going to bring Adam into this, and I want to let others kind of comment on what we kind of covered. But Adam, what's up with you, man?
How's it going, brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How you doing?
Is there any feedback or is it good?
Nah, you're good.
Cool. I was thinking about these type of cases. I mean, it was I can't say exactly where I was, one of the 48 contiguous states, but there was a case where I overheard a man basically speaking about the abuse that his child had suffered, right? So his child was removed from him, and when he spoke with an investigator, he said, "Look, I'm only allowed to see my child once a week. The mom says that I can't really see, that she's sick or whatever. But then my child has this, has this laceration,
Mm.
and this is the second time they've had this laceration. If this was me, I would have been brought up on charges like my rights as a father are not being respected." When he said that, they called the police.
Mm.
They immediately called the police when he said his rights as a father are not being respected. Granted, his voice, he was getting agitated, but he wasn't, a violent person. And so the
Right.
use of show of force, right, against fathers in general, but against men in particular, and this was a young Latino man, but it's the same point that the way that the police are used against men in particular, especially when they're asserting their rights, is something that needs to be addressed. And what's also interesting is what was commented on earlier between Dead Set and Kofa about particularly with regards to how the family court judges operate. And what's interesting is that there's in relation to welfare service or child welfare services, because there's these two moving pieces. There's other organizations, but these two moving pieces don't always get along, right? And so a lot of the family courts in the New York State, for example, a lot of the family courts are moving towards an evidence-based practice. A lot of disciplines are going toward an evidence-based practice. And so one of the things they're asking now is, well, are you giving, what are you doing to engage the father? But because not all organizations have switched to an evidence-based practice, some of them are on a tradition-based practice, right? The tradition is that the mother gets it, right? The mother gets the child. So there is no efforts made toward reaching the father. And so even when the courts are on the man's side, sometimes these other agencies are not. And inversely, when these other agencies are saying, hey, look, let's try and give the child to the father, we have video evidence. I mean, these are not the men with video evidence. These are other government organizations, entities, and non-for-profits that have the video evidence and have attorneys are saying, hey, look, our attorneys reviewed the evidence. She's clearly running at the man with a knife while he has the child in his hand. Let's give him custody. And the courts are saying no. So you have to get both of these groups to agree on the father getting custody in order for the man to get custody, but the default is for the woman to get custody. And this is something that's systemic. This is across the board, whether it's the family courts, whether it's child protective services or child welfare agencies, or whether it's police in the way that they engage in their practices. Many a time it's a tradition-based approach. And so that's why I think it's very important, the work that you're doing, especially bringing out this data as more and more institutions are the evidence-based approach is still novel to many institutions. In 1992, that's when the medical establishments, in medicine in general, really started to accept an evidence-based approach in clinical practice. And since then, it's been slowly but surely gaining ground in other areas. And so it's just now begun to make it to social sciences and organizations that operate on such. So a lot of this tradition is still baked into the current practice, the policies, the people who are doing the training, the people that the new workers are learning from. All of them are still stuck in these old ways, right? And so if they're going to switch to this evidence-based approach, there has to be evidence, there has to be data, there has to be a reason why they would change all this tradition. And that's why we have to rely on this information. We can't be, I'm not that anyone's scared, but we can't shy away from using this information. We can't call it a defeatist mindset or a victim mentality. If we want to see things change, it would be fearful not to do so.
I want to speak to that.
Go ahead.
Because like one of my biggest sources of research are, well, I started with some of the white guys who were winning the cases. Many of them, they got YouTube channels. And the thing that I found, like in Washington, D.C., right down the street, lots more men are winning their custody cases and gaining custody of their children. And number one, the sheer number of lawsuits that family court is dealing with across the board is staggering. And that's one of the reasons why, I stayed in the fight. If I don't have a lawyer, well, I'm going to do my own research and do it myself. But yeah, I've got 4 lawsuits pending right now.
Wow.
Against the DHS, against the first judge, against 2 of them are against my ex-wife.
Okay.
And the ones against the DHS and against the first judge, those are constitutional. Because it was like, the case law states that what happened to me should never have happened.
Yeah.
And so, but what usually happens in the normal course of things is that most men are poor and they don't know, and they just don't know how to fight back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're in a position where you might set legal precedent. By being in the position to levy these suits, you might be able to create precedent that other men can use as a foothold for their own experience.
I hope so.
So shout out to you for that.
Yeah, good on you, Dead Set, for even pushing that forward, because there's so many men that would have just ate that L, just threw their hands up out of frustration, and like Doc said earlier, just burnt out. Because I know you've already been fighting an uphill battle to even get to this point where you had a chance to fight back through a lawsuit. You already had to fight through the original case.
Yeah, man, it's not easy, and that's, well, a thing worth doing isn't is a thing worth having. So I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that it's not emotionally draining. Part of that has to do with, as BJS would say, my sort of black pill attitude.
Yeah,
I see the world for what it is, and okay, if I got to wrestle this lion, I'm going to wrestle it. Let me just armor up and then do it.
I think it's also interesting, just as a side note, that you're keeping in with the tradition of Black men in this country. Whenever we needed to get something changed or done, it was almost always grassroots from our own pockets. When Black men became directors in film, for example, it was all out of pocket. When it came to the civil rights movement, it was almost always Black men from the grassroots with what little we had, getting together to make grand changes. But when it comes to other groups, they get all of this huge institutional support. And so what I think is interesting about what you're doing now is that, in keeping in line with that tradition, but also what's interesting about the environment we're in now is that you have professors like Dr. Johnson, you have professors like Dr. Curry that are challenging the institutions as well, just as you're challenging the institutions from the grassroots level as well. And so now it's not a matter of us always having to come out of pocket ourselves, but we're also challenging the institutions, saying, hey, we see what you're doing, and we see where you're funneling the money and how you're supporting all these other groups. We're calling out your contradiction in a way that can't be silenced. And so I think that it's an interesting time we're living in, and I definitely applaud and appreciate your work.
The lack of gatekeepers, the Black Manosphere as a entity, right, is a grassroots organization where it's just a big, large crowdsourcing of information, where guys are coming together and exchanging information, ideas, and experiences, and so that people like Dr. Johnson can have, it's almost like a big ass survey, right? A big ass study, where you got, instead of having Dr. Johnson only have 400 or 500 people, he's got 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 people that could actually come at any time and give him information and give him data, real-time data that can't be disproven. So, and this is literally a grassroots, bottom-up movement.
Yeah.
That's decentralized. People can say, "What is it doing?" It's slowly but surely, it's starting to change the way people look at things, and change the way even large groups look at things, and change the way that governments have to look at us. Because we've changed the so-called larger manosphere that has way more money, way more people, which is white manosphere, right? The Black manosphere is a little bitty entity, that's been disparaged, has slowly but surely started to change the way people look at things.
Yeah. And it's important because one of the things I noticed when Kofa told his story and the police showed up, so much of that was really luck. So much of that, how that scenario played out, was
could have gone left. He's a big Black guy. Could have gone left really quickly.
But the thing that got me about it, though, his face is scratched up. her bra strap was off her shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And in that scenario, he would still be looked at as a threat. The only thing that changed the dynamic is that she started to get out of pocket with a female cop who didn't want to take it. But in almost every scenario I could think of outside of that, he'd have been the one heading to jail.
Yeah,
you know,
or at very worst, they'd have put her out and it would have never been reported.
Yeah,
at the very worst.
And that was never lost on me. Even again, I've never put my hands on a woman before that or after. That's not what I do.
Right.
So in that moment, again at 26, it still wasn't lost on me that that's what saved me. Her being irate like that and flipping out, and like her mouth, that was the one time I've seen a black woman's mouth get a black man out of trouble. Like that's what saved me, is her jawing at this female police officer.
I wasn't ready for that.
I want some of what you got.
And then like Doc said it, bro, it was straight up luck. Look, when I say my friends, my homeboys, after they found out what happened, like they looked at me for the next week like I could walk on water.
You did.
I swear, they looked at me like, you know, one of our homeboys was out of town. You know, he came back in, so he got the story kind of late. He just stopped and looked at me. He was like, "Bruh," I'm like, "What?" He was like, "Nigga, you beat the system."
Yeah, man.
And I was like, "Oh shit, I did."
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it's not something I wanted to be involved in, but sitting back, like, that's what saved me. Was her doing what she was doing, and I wish I saw it then. But y'all heard the rest of the story. You'll see it, the rest of the story on the channel or whatnot. But
my subs have been asking for that story. I said when Doc does this interview, you know, I'll point you guys to the story because they really want to know. They especially part 2 and part 2.5.
Yeah.
But what happened? What happened? What did he do? You got to go see.
I put the names on the screen so you guys can visit, G.R.O.W.T.H's channel, Kofa's channel. But I also put those 2 videos on my community tab. You can go through that through YouTube, go to the community tab. You can watch both videos, subscribe to his channel, comment, on the video. But I just want to stress again, this isn't easy. When you get up here and you tell your life experience, you got people who get to hide behind avatars and fake names come in and tell you what's wrong with you and what you should have done. But but they're not transparent about the real life experiences they've had. So it takes a lot to get up and say, hey, this is what happened. This is what I did. I'm not perfect, but this is what took place. That takes a lot. And I want people to recognize that. And again, I tip my hat to the brother for being willing to do it, because there's so many lessons that come out of this experience. And so many brothers, even in these comments, who can identify with different aspects of the story.
Yeah. If somebody asked in the chat, I saw it, a little while ago. I forgot to answer, but yes, she was black. They asked, was it a black woman? And so yes, she was.
With a white woman? No,
she was a black woman again. But so another piece of advice for those young guys listening, it sounds cliche, sounds simple, but that whole forgiveness is for you thing, I truly don't believe in that. You're just kind of giving somebody a second chance to do the same thing again. So be cautious with that. And again, like my mom told me, a tiger don't change its stripes.
Oh, yeah. The whole thing about forgiveness is take the burden off of you, but the thing is, don't forget. Okay, you keep forgiveness with remembrance, right? Do not. You can forgive somebody without getting back into that situation again. I forgive you, baby, but guess what? We can't do this no more. Stay over there.
Yeah, it's just like being charitable, but don't throw your pearls.
Ace Butterfly asked me, did I get a copy of the police report? I still have it to this day. That's why I was able to. When you go see the second video, I got the pictures up. That's why I still have it.
Is it in a frame?
No, I keep it. I keep it away for safekeeping because she did put a restraining order on me, and it was granted. So again, I had never been in that situation, never even thought about being in that situation. So I put one back on her, and she tried to play the game. She lifted it, but I kept mine on. So that's how she ended up getting charged. So I'm glad I did that. But again, in those couple of years, we kind of touched base again. I didn't share this part of the story on either the video, but when she had started working in a certain field where I guess her background check came back.
Mhm.
So she asked me as a friend
Yep.
to write a personal letter.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I did it.
Mhm.
The whatever sanction on her was lifted.
Mhm.
She went on to start making more money than me. So
Okay.
again, we as men do so many favors. We keep so many
Mhm.
secrets. We fall on our sword all the time, especially emotionally. And it's
Yeah.
something that Kevin Samuel said that we, RP to him. He said the men are the more emotional of the two, or the more romantic of the two.
Romantic, yes.
Romantic,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're more the romantic of the two. Who writes the love songs?
Mm-hmm.
Who writes the poems?
Mm-hmm.
Who does the majority of forgiving and the apologizing?
Who has a SIM chip in their brain?
Yeah,
Right.
you gotta wipe that simp chip.
Male
Yes.
relationship,
That
emotional
reboot.
labor.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Doc's got to write that book, man. It's important.
Yeah.
There's something to be said, though. I mean, because you like when you were talking about the restraining orders,
Mhm.
a lot of the times, I think what a lot of men don't do is they don't get to the police station or to the commissioner first.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo.
Yes, because in my case with my first ex-wife, with my ex-wife,
Mhm.
yeah, I was the first one to file that restraining order. I was the one who filed for the divorce. It was like, if you can't respect me, you gotta go.
Right.
I didn't even think of, and that's the thing, I didn't think about it. Like my mom's if anybody from the South, like my mom, hard nosed, like city/country girl. She from Birmingham.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So no nonsense, grew up during the end of the civil rights movement, but right up the street from the 16th Street Baptist Church. Like my family got history. So my mom is no nonsense with a lot of stuff. And she's the one that had to convince me, you need to go put a restraining order because I guarantee she did it. I'm like, nah, mama, she wouldn't do that. It's over. She out the house, blah, blah, blah. You need to go do the paperwork. I'll be damn, I'll go do the paperwork. She done beat me there.
Mm-hmm.
Dead set is dead on. She had
Right.
already beat me there. And it's
Game
something
recognized game.
yeah,
Game
and it's something
recognized game.
interesting that Adam said, kind of pivoting. These different government entities, they're not even on the same page.
Mm-mm.
Like what Dead said just went through. He kind of got the police on his side with, hey, this guy didn't do this. In the court, another separate legal entity is saying it don't matter. And then you add in, like you said, child services or something like that.
DHS. Yeah.
If everybody isn't on the same wavelength, that's why the brother got 4 lawsuits going, just because the court was like,
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
wow, that is crazy.
I want to give everybody an opportunity for some closing thoughts. And really, one of the things I want to send people to do as soon as we're done is to go over to the brother's channel and listen to the stories directly, comment, share your own experiences. I want to hear people in the comment section on this video share your own experiences, talk about what happened, what you're familiar with, so on and so forth, and what, again, we can tell other men to do to either avoid it or get out of it if they find themselves in it. But I want to start in the order. I'll start with Adam, then Dead Set, and we'll just kind of work from there, just giving your closing thoughts on this whole discussion. So start with Adam.
All right, I'll be brief. I think stories like this are very powerful because of their qualitative nature. Number one, the fact that so many brothers can relate to it, and there's so much to glean from it specifically, but also because it's a powerful testimony against there are many adversaries to this particular to Black masculinism and to just Black men having the human rights that we deserve anyway. There's people who are opponents to that, and they claim that things like this just don't happen, right? These people don't exist. That's as you said in the video, that's just that black male shit, right? That's what they claim, right? But when you have testimony like this, it cannot be ignored, it cannot be denied, right? And so there's so much that could be learned from this, and the fact that there's so many people in this space, we're now beginning to see institutions pay attention to the very issues we've been talking about, because we have the quantitative data, we have the qualitative data here, and we have the advocacy. So all we need to do is continue to do what we're doing, to continue to push, to not give up. And so I commend brothers like Dead Set. I want to personally extend thank you to you, Kofa, as well, for for coming on the show and giving this experience. Brothers like BGS, well, BGS, you specifically you, for the work you've been doing over the years, and Dr. Johnson again, because the work that you guys are all doing, even in the various fields, are having an impact. You're having an impact on Black men, such as myself and others. You're having an impact on the system, and you are having an impact on the future for Black men and boys in America and abroad. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Hold on, before you leave, Adam, I want to shout Adam out because Adam actually applies the things we're talking about in his work, and not just
really?
at the job site. He's applying it in terms of trying to create policy within his field, not just his job, within his field around the things we're talking about. And those are the kind of brothers that I definitely want to tip my hat to. But the other reason I wanted Adam to stay is I wanted you guys to see this comment from Drape the Man before you leave. Says the worst thing I've ever seen was a man that had hot grits mixed with lye. Hot grits with lye mixed in, thrown in his face because the girlfriend said he cheated on her.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old. I'm 71 now.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I've heard it where in Texas it was a thing back in the 60s where the wife would serve ground up glass into the man's food.
Yes, sir.
Oh
Yes, sir.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
this the dysfunction and violence in our families have been around for a very long time. My grandmother used to carry and she was born in 1910. Used to carry she carried a straight razor in a bra, and she literally chased her husband around with a double bit axe. So the violence in our family is not new.
In fact, I
This-
think in the Library of Congress, there's I got to see if I could find it again. There's actually a handbook, not a handbook but some recordings of Black women that were discussing ways to correct a husband that wasn't acting right. They
Right.
spoke about different, things they put in his alcohol or things like that. It's actually in the Library of Congress. I got to see if I can find it again.
Yeah.
But,
I call that
crazy.
bitchcraft, but
Yeah,
that's real.
Witchcraft
There
from
was
the
a story.
coven.
There was a story last year, and this was in Europe. This was an elderly white woman who threw boiling sugar water on her husband, and it separated the sugar made it sticky. It separated his skin from his body, and he died. She just walked next door and told the neighbor what she did. But this shit happens. But I appreciate you coming through, Adam. Go ahead.
You know where she learned it? She learned it from the South, man, because it's very common in the
Oh,
South.
man.
Yeah, she learned that from Black women.
Let me go ahead and so I appreciate Adam coming up, and I want Dead Set to give his closing thoughts. Adam, I'm gonna take you down.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Closing thoughts. Now that I'm getting back into the groove of things, I'm not going to be alone for the rest of my life. Even though I wouldn't mind being a monk, I just like touching women too much. But my lesson is for the guys who are getting their passports. Take these lessons with you overseas. I mean, we always talk. I hear them talking about what's going on here, and their reasons are great. Their reasons are good for wanting to leave here. But don't forget, a woman is a woman is a woman is a woman, no matter where you go. Cultures be damned. Yes, you get better things out of a different culture.
Yeah.
However, she's still a woman.
Yeah, there was a story. I think I might find that again and post it, where this is actually in Kenya, right? They have 400 guys that have been had boiling water thrown on them by their wives. So,
Wow.
Don't let your guard down. Okay.
Don't let your guard down.
Well, and especially brothers that are leaving with PTSD, relationship PTSD. Yo, I'm serious. Really, really look at that, because you might bring some shit with you don't need to bring. But when you have relationship PTSD, you don't process things healthily. Like even being treated well. Brothers I know that have gone through this, when they're treated well, their first question is, when is the other shoe gonna drop?
It's gonna drop, yeah. Because I think it was in fact Andrew Tate just had a short, right, talk about the difference between a Black women and white women as far as discipline, right? He says with Black women, everybody gets beat down. Okay. You come out of childhood as with PTSD, right? And in fact, I think somebody was talking about he was talking about a scar, a 6-inch scar that his friend had that came from his mother, right? And it reminded me, I still today, I'm 63. I still have a scar on my leg that my mother gave me when I was 6. Okay, it's like
Wow.
a 3-inch scar that's still there. So
Yeah.
so we grow. So the reason we actually take this and accept this is because we grow up with it, right? Grow up with a certain amount of violence and discipline, right? So when it comes from we're used to getting hit by women. Okay, we grew up getting hit by women. Our fathers really don't discipline us that much. It's usually mom, right? When we grow up, we're used to women disciplining us physically. So whereas white men are not as much. But for black men, we're actually used to being disciplined by women. So we kind of accept it. And the thing is, until it gets to a level like with Kofa, where it got to beyond the pale, where it's actually getting damaging, right? If she slapped him a couple of times, he probably would have kept it pushing, right? Because we're used to that kind of stuff. So we grow up in this kind of stuff. So it's kind of normalized for black men to get hit by the women. It just is.
Right. Yeah. So that is true because my mother was the most violent. But yeah, just remember when you go over there, the difference between the women over there and the women over here is that they have less incentives to act out of pocket. That's
Mm,
the only difference.
mm.
Yep.
And
Equal
with
rights.
that,
Equal rights get equal lefts. Yeah.
right. With that, I'm out.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming through, Des. And I wish the brother well. I hope when he gets these lawsuits resolved, we get to hear about it. But BGS, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts.
You know what? When I heard Kofa's story, man, that is so reminiscent of just about every relationship I have. That's why when I grew up, right? Because I grew up in the same kind of dysfunction everybody else grows up in, with moms and pops getting into and that kind of stuff, right? That's normal, right? So I decided when I grew up, I was not going to allow a woman to put her hands on me, right? So every woman I ever went with, seriously, right? I told her first day, I said, first rule, do not put your hands on me. And if you decide to do it, I said, I will put you in the hospital. Okay. Do not even think about it. I will not hesitate. I will do my bid, whatever it takes. I said, I will not accept you putting your hands on me. Okay. You can scream and shout, do backflips, whatever you want to do. Do not put your hands on me. Okay. Because I will react and I will hurt you. And I have never had a woman put their hands on me because I had to threaten them from the jump. So two things are going to happen. You're going to be hurt and I will never see you again. Okay. So if you value my relationship, do not put your hands on me. And I've had women that have come close, but they never have. But the thing is, it's a shame that they even have to do that. That's every relationship. And they all you look in their eyes like, I would wish I could kick that nigga's ass, right? You can look in their eyes. I wish I could put my hands on. If I could just put my hands on him right now, I'd kill him.
Yeah.
But it's a shame that black men as CompuServe have to endure this kind of stuff because, I mean, you hear it, but you don't never hear it anywhere to that kind of what rate that black men have to put up with violence. And most black guys don't even report it. Like I would say, like 90% would. Like Kofa probably would have let it go. If she had backed off and went upstairs, he'd have taken a couple of bruises and never reported. But the thing is, it got to the point where he had to do something. And that's typical.
Well, it's especially important too, and I really want to stress this to brothers. If you find yourself in those situations, and it can be difficult to maintain rational thought, the more you find yourself under threat, the more frustrated you get.
Yeah.
You leave, but
Leave.
also reflect on if you can, on how much work it took to get where you are. Because I can tell you now, man, 10 years of graduate work could have been thrown down the toilet by 30 seconds of rage.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about living with what I might do to someone. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a point where you really have to step back and say, what's the cost, and breathe through it. And this is one of the things I heard in Kofa's second story, where he was like, I was more mature and he handled her differently. But there was
I can't wait.
there's also something else he said that I thought was important. He talked about military service. He talked about how, he wouldn't have been able to go in the military had things gone differently.
Wow.
In his story.
Yeah.
So we're not only talking about things that you've already sacrificed for, but what future opportunities might be hampered by letting. And really, it doesn't have to take longer than 30. It can take 10 seconds. Just a release where you just lose track, and just a life-altering thing.
I mean, what if he had killed her? Because he easily could have killed her. What if he had killed her?
He thought he had. Yeah.
He thought he had. Yeah.
So, and aside from what that will do to him, you don't want to live with that, because just like he said he never put hands on a woman before or after. That's not the kind of brother he was. Imagine what that would do to his spirit to carry the weight of having actually killed somebody he loved on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely want brothers to take that, use that to reflect on just how to carry yourself. And when you find, when and if you find yourself in a similar situation, leave,
And don't
record,
come. Yeah.
do what you
And
need to do.
leave, record, and don't come back. Okay. That should be a deal breaker. And a lot of times, black guys, we don't accept those as deal breakers because we're used to it.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, BGS. Thanks for coming through, man.
All right, Doc.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
All right, good brother Kofa. Go ahead and give us some thoughts about this. And I do have one question for you. Go ahead.
Okay. Closing thoughts, just brothers, if you are in that situation, it don't take but once. If you get out that situation once, do not go back. Like BGS said, you can forgive all day if you must, but do not forget. Don't go back. Because again, like Doc just mentioned, I mentioned it in the stories, I wouldn't have had a military career. I'm going on 15 years now. If it happened while I was in the military, for any guys in the military, those with family members, and sometimes they do get with the wrong woman because they end up marrying a woman. He's in love with her. She's marrying him for the benefits. I've seen that go left plenty of times working in legal. So if he puts his hands on her, it's a wrap because that's a DV charge. We call it a God, I forgot the name of the charge. But anyway, it's a domestic violence charge. He can't carry a firearm. You're no good to the military if you can't carry a firearm. He has to go. Not necessarily saying he's going to jail or military jail or anything like that. There's other consequences that'll definitely come with it. And we call it Lautenberg. It's a Lautenberg agreement. So if he catches a DV charge or anybody, you can't carry a weapon. So he's out or she's out because, you know, I know we're talking about male, female dynamics, but just period. That's the law. That's the rule. They got to go. So for brothers that are in the military, think about that. Also, if you're in a marriage and you're pushing up against 10 years and she's starting to act a fool, bruh, get out. Leave before that 10th. If she hits that 10th year, she is getting half of your military retirement. I got a brother right now. He has worked an extra 3 years just to get his money up a little bit more in retirement. So when she does, because she's getting it, when she does get half his military retirement and his civilian federal retirement, it doesn't hit him as bad because she's getting 50%. The only thing that's saving him, and he'll tell you himself, is he's getting VA disability and she can't touch that. But the 20 plus years he did in the Army, the 20 plus years he's done as a federal civilian, she's getting half of those off top. So he did an extra 3 years just to kind of offset it. So if you have the opportunity to leave, bro, don't go back. If you see her rearing its ugly head during the talking stage, don't take her serious, cut ties, leave. And I know it sounds so simple, but again, like I said in the video, I'm in a space in my life where I'm trying to simplify things.
Yeah.
I'll give you I know I'm getting long with it, but let me give a quick analogy. Michael Jordan in 92 was scoring 32 points a game. Everybody was amazed. One interviewer asked him, Mike, how are you doing this night in, night out? He said, I simplified my game. 32 points is 16 points a half. It's 8 points a quarter. You telling me I can't score 8 points a quarter? And then half of my points are coming when the clock is stopped because I got fouled. So I'm shooting free throws. So 4 of those points are coming from the free throw line. He just broke it down to his most infinitesimal level on how he was scoring 32 points a night. We're looking as fans thinking, you know, this is Michael Jordan. He broke it down to his smallest level.
Yeah.
But when I give that analogy, break it down to its smallest level. Did she have a father in her life? How does she act around other men? Does she have a man she respects, period? Whether or not it's her father, because, you know, you really can't do anything. Does she have an older man that she respects that can pretty much check her when she's out of pocket? Is there somebody that you can go to as a man to kind of point things out like we're doing now? What's her past history in relationships? The stuff that we say doesn't matter. And I'm not just talking about body count. Her mental capacity. How short is her fuse? Watch how she treats the waitress at Olive Garden. If she likes being petty and catty with other people just because, that's a bad personality trait. That's not going to last, especially if you're a peaceful brother, easygoing. Your personalities don't match. Stop looking at beauty. Stop looking at how fat the ass is. I'm a country boy from Alabama. I love around with myself.
I hear you.
Start looking at personality traits. If your personality traits don't match, cut ties early, because it's going to go from 0 to prison real quick.
Yeah. One question I wanted to ask was actually extended in the comments earlier in the show. They actually asked what your thoughts were on Black men traveling to find different types of relationships, different types of women. What are your thoughts after all you've been through? What, how do you look at that?
I'm big on it. Again, I come from a military family, so being around different cultures, from different Asian cultures to different, Latino, Hispanic cultures to different African cultures. I'm big on it. Again, it's something my mama taught me. Y'all can tell I'm a mama's boy, but it is what it is. But she told me you got to leave home to grow. And it's not just leaving your parents' household. It's not just leaving your city or your state. It's getting outside the country. You find out different things about yourself. So it's not just about the women. Because when you get out the country, the women are going to be there. They outnumber us in the world, period. There's literally billions with a B women in the world. Wherever you go, there's going to be different women. So you still got to find your fit, your personality trait, but you find out so much more about yourself. That's the important thing. Because not only are you going to find out what you like, you're going to find out what you don't like and what you're not going to put up with. And that's even bigger, in my opinion, than finding something that you like. So I'm big on it. I have a passport. I've been out the country a couple of times within the last year. And I like to say I'm passport bro adjacent. I don't have the stamps in my passport yet that a lot of other brothers have, but I'm coming. Like Africa's on the list, Thailand's on the list, Brazil's on the list, and 2 of those are probably getting scratched off this year. Yeah, so I'm going. I'm moving around. I'm big on it, and it's part of just finding yourself, bro. The women gonna be there. Like you take you wherever you go.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm kind of a nerd. I like the John Wick stuff. I like the spy movies and Batman. I like being able to go to another country and just speak enough of the language to get some food and maybe flirt with a girl. That's cool to me.
Okay,
so that's one of my goals.
I'm following right behind you, man. Like I've been telling people, I'm sending my son to school next fall, and I'm getting on a plane. So that's how it's going for me. But
your son graduated, right?
He's graduating this semester. This is his last semester.
Okay, my daughter's 19. They're around the same age.
Yep.
Being an empty nester is not that bad, Doc. I want to give you that heads up, bro. I know people are like, aren't you lonely? I get that. I can walk around here in my drawers. And play video games without somebody trying to butt in.
I'm looking forward to it. But there's something you said a second ago I wanted to tap into before you leave. You talked about, and earlier we were talking about Kevin Samuels and the whole question of men loving differently or harder than women. And when you were talking about what can happen with your military earnings post divorce, I think that's so key. That whatever industry you're in, you should know the laws, you should know the policies, you should understand how vulnerable you might find yourself. I tell this story repeatedly. I'm gonna keep telling it. I actually hired a woman as a financial consultant years ago, and this was a white woman, but she actually grew up around Black women, and so she had Black women friends, she had white women friends. And one day she said to me something that just caught me off guard, and I'll never forget it. She said, "I just want to tell you, as a professor, teaching in the Cal States," she said, you get a pension. Now, honestly, at that time, I had never thought about the pension. I didn't think about it at all. She said, "Look, let me tell you." She said, most of my Black girlfriends would not date you. As far as they're concerned, you're just a teacher, right? She said, my white girlfriends would date you, and they could tell you how much your pension will be when you retire. It blew my mind. And it wasn't just the white-Black dynamic. It was the fact that when I think about relationships, just as many men do, especially with the upbringing we had, I'm thinking about it like, I don't care if she's a waitress or if she makes $300,000 a year. If I love her because I love her. This was my blue pill kind of outlook on the world. Women, however, are far more strategic, and they tend to take the material reality very seriously, whether she ever says so or not. I was amazed when I started asking questions the women I was dating, how very clear they were about finances, about retirement, about what you have and what she can use. I'm not thinking of none of that when it comes
because what's hers is hers and what's yours is hers.
Exactly.
That's the way they think, and they're not. No shot at the sisters or any woman. I know how hard y'all work. I know how smart y'all are. We all do. But when it comes to a certain point, y'all not gonna work no more. Men are taught to work until we get in the grave.
Yeah,
it's so many men that won't retire. I know older men that it took my father forever to retire. This man did 30 years active duty service in the Army.
Yeah.
Then he turned around and did 25 years federal service. It wasn't until my grandmother, his mother, died that he finally was like, okay, I need to come home.
Wow.
And my dad is 73. He looks like he's 58.
Right.
Like he's kept himself together, you know, but it's so many black men, not just my father, but older men that refuse to retire because they think the next step is death. We don't understand that there's life to live.
Right. Right.
So a lot of times, just to your point, Doc, women are already thinking about life to live. Well, shit, I'm gonna outlive him anyway. So let me go figure out what his money gonna look like.
Oh, exactly.
And it's funny you said that because it's so many where these military bases are. The women around that military base, they know Army rank.
Yes.
They know Army structure. Yes. They know again how much the retirement could be. Like never did a day in the Army, but having grew up around that base and dated different soldiers here and there. Or their girlfriends dating, they know it. They have learned it.
Oh yeah. If you ever go see that movie, what is it? Oh man, what is it? I'm picturing in my head. Lou Gossett Jr. Plays. It's a military film from the 80s. Damn it! How am I blanking on this film? I know somebody in the chat knows which one I'm talking about. It was a.
I'm trying to think of it too.
Oh man, now
I see it clear as day.
I can see it. I'm gonna remember it as soon as we get offline. But it's a military movie, and Richard Gere is in it with him, and he plays a guy going into the Navy. I mean, to the Marines, and the women, officer and a gentleman. Thank you, no one.
Yeah,
officer and a gentleman. You know, when he goes in, the women around the base, they know all the ranks. They know what kind of men to date. They're talking about it amongst each other. Yep. You know, remember when I tell you, I didn't really learn what a pension was until a woman told me what it was. I just kind of thought it was like a 401k, and I'm so young, I'm not even thinking about retirement. I'm like, this is irrelevant to me. She broke it down to me, the difference between a pension and a 401k, how you get it for the rest of your life, and after you die, your wife still gets it, if not half the full amount. I didn't know about none of that. She told me. And she didn't learn it in her business. She learned it amongst her girlfriends. They talked about it. Now, again, she said the white women knew about it. She said the black women, it wasn't that they didn't know. It's that they were targeting doctors, lawyers, and what was she said? Doctors, lawyers, and athletes and entertainers.
They wanted it now.
They wanted it now. They wanted it now. So they didn't want to wait for somebody who might have a retirement 40 years later. They wanted it now. So she said outside of those 4 fields, some of them would deal with drug dealers. So, you know, and academic doctors didn't count. Medical doctors, lawyers, athletes, and entertainers. And some would deal with drug dealers. Wow. The white women she knew were more nuanced in the different types of men, but they all had a material focus that most men I know don't process in that way when it comes to relationships and love. We don't.
And it's not, and brothers, that don't make you dumb. That's just the way we're wired. We work. Like we work. That's what we do. Like if you go back in the annals of history, we work. You knew who was the soldier, you knew who was the fisher, you knew who was the blacksmith. We work. There wasn't, even back then, it wasn't a such thing as retirement. Like that's one of the hardest things to do is just to get a man to get a man. Not an adult boy, to get a man to sit still. Like Doc, I'm sure his days you know you need to take a day off, and when you do give yourself some time, you feel a little bit funny. Like, I could write that curriculum. I could come up with this assignment. Like, no, man, sit there. And I'm big on cigars, so I'm gonna sit in my garage. I'm probably gonna get ready to go out there and smoke one now just to decompress. I'm gonna have my cigar. I'm relaxed, and I just got to this point after this bad breakup back in 21. When we finally called it quits, I had to start giving myself grace.
Well, and that's one of the things that I haven't learned how to do. So once my son is gone, I got a lot of learning about what I enjoy and whatnot. But I can say I've started to take a liking to cooking. You know, I enjoy cooking. So I'm learning about it. But these are things that I never thought about before. So it's slow coming. But at the end of the day, you know, these are we're as you said, we're not socialized that way. We're not wired that way. And even when I look at Felicia's comment in the comment section, she said, well, you would get your wife's pension if she died before you. I'm not looking at women for a pension. You know what I mean? She could be a waitress. She could
That
be
man done lost his baby. That's what we think of.
she could not be working at all. Men don't process it. We're not looking for women that have a pension or make a certain amount. Every time, look, every class I've taught where I've asked the students, how many of you have a list of standards for who you date, who you marry? It's only been the women that have raised their hands. I've not had one male student raise his hand and say, this is my list of standards. This is what I'm looking for in women. Not one male, because we're not socialized to think of it that way. Girls get taught from a young age. If you know, these are the standards that you get with for a man.
Got to go down that checklist.
Woman I've had in my class can give you a list of her standards from height to weight, to occupation to income. They can go down the list. Most men, no idea.
No. And Doc, let me give you your flowers. I really appreciate you reposting, because you didn't have to do that. We, you know, text back and forth on Facebook, but reposting that, it's so many brothers that hit me up. It was like, me too, and don't want to steal the Me Too movement, but hey, I'm not by myself.
Not at all.
But you know, it's crazy that we keep these stories to ourselves out of shame and embarrassment. But we got to make it okay to tell these stories. And like I like to say, you know, they always say that nice guys finish last, but I say nice guys finish last because you're the last man standing. When the smoke clears, like, you're the guy that's capable, you're the guy that's executing, you're the guy that's getting things done, you're the guy that the father that stepped up, you're raising some other man's kids plus yours. It's so many things we do as men that we don't give ourselves grace for. So Doc, I want you to give yourself grace. I know you're finding cooking, but you already found something you like. Look back at your wall. Those swords back there are dope as hell. You know what you like. I know how it is to put so much emphasis in being a father, and you know, especially being a single father, and getting it done, and seeing that to fruition, till that child is out of the house. But you know the things you like. You just probably trying to juggle them all at once, but you know the things you like. So keep digging and searching and doing.
Yeah, but you know this as a single father, your focus is on keeping everything level, getting them to the next step. That it takes till just before they leave before you go, wait a minute, who am I again? Like I don't remember what I used to like to do. I don't remember where I used to like to go. So this, but I'm gonna treat it as a fun enterprise. I'm not gonna take it on as work. I'm looking forward to finding out. You know,
and then, like I said, the swords back there, like, people see them as novelty pieces, but as men, it's gonna sound crazy. You have to keep a piece of your happy childhood. We love talking about childhood trauma. I swear to God, I got up this past Saturday and I watched Saturday morning cartoons. I came right to YouTube because you know they don't exist anymore.
Right.
I watched the full G.R.O.W.T.H movie.
What?
I sat there and watched Silverhawks. It's all on YouTube. Ninja Turtle. I took it back with a bowl of cereal.
That's right.
Like I was 8 years old again.
That's right.
And was like, oh, I forgot about this episode. This is the one where you have to give yourself a piece of childhood. It sounds childish. Give yourself that joy. And then get back into the grown folks world. You'll do that. But Saturday morning, I'm like, we don't even have Saturday morning cartoons anymore. And that's something, again,
Silverhawks.
When my ex was here, and like I said, she had 2 boys, and I'm like, what are y'all watching? They're watching Netflix. I'm like, they don't even have Saturday morning cartoons. So I cut off Netflix. We went to YouTube, and they was like, oh, this is Ninja Turtle. This looks different from our Ninja Turtle. This is the real Ninja Turtles. Like, you got to have a theme song. You got to, so. And those are the other things that men typically miss. We stay in these situations a lot of times because of the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't give us credit for that. We always hear that from the mothers. Well, we're
Right.
sticking it out for the kids. And so many men, brothers, if those children are going to love you, they're going to love you. But you got to be willing to let them go. And they know when they got a father. They know when they got a man around them. So they're not going anywhere. You and old girl can split. It's only going to be a matter of time before those children get old enough when they start reaching out to you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So,
sir. Appreciate that, man. Thank you for coming up. You know, I'm looking forward to what you're going to do next with the channel. Can you tell people when the next video might drop?
So I'm going live tomorrow night. I got to touch on this piece again. No shot at the sisters, but a lot of our sisters are losing their minds, and we don't talk about it enough. We talk about how crazy the men are and stuff, but something is going on in our community, like realistically. So I'm going to talk about the lady that got arrested down in Miami that flipped out, you know, tearing up the stuff because her kids went to the bathroom. She couldn't find her kids
In the airport.
She blamed the staff. It's a couple other videos I have where the sisters are breaking out. And something else that we don't talk about, we've kind of touched, I know you've touched on it and other people too, but I'm trying to dig in. So again, I'm going live. So if you can come on there and share your stories, I'm going to touch on the pedophilia part of Black women. Because I'm seeing more and more videos of women giggling when little boys are touching their butt or they're twerking on little boys, stuff like that, like just totally inappropriate. And we take it as a joke. And it's not. So that's going to be my live tomorrow night. And then I'm still trying to get a rhythm. Like I said, the channel's still new, still small. I'm trying to figure out a night where it's best for me to go live. And but tomorrow night is going to be the night. It's going to be Thursday tomorrow at 9. So if y'all can tap in, type in 9 Central. I mean 9 Eastern. I'm sorry. I'm in Atlanta for those. For those on the East Coast, and I think y'all guys are 3 hours behind in California.
All right.
So just like, share, subscribe. Growth Talk with Kofa. Oh, for brothers, growth stands for a gentleman reaching our wealth through healing.
All right.
So it may be tongue in cheek. I cuss up a storm. Like I said, I smoke my cigars, but it's coming from a good place. I love my people, especially my brothers. We got to make better choices. Like I always in my videos, you matter. You're not crazy. As always, brothers, make better choices. I appreciate you having me, Doc.
Hey, thanks for coming up, man. Have a good one, bro.
You too.
All right. So like I said, I appreciate all the brothers that came up. Brother Adam, who's been a consistent supporter of the channel. Brother Dead Set, who's always dropping it. And of course, Brother BGS, who has a standing invitation at any time. I appreciate him coming through. And of course, Kofa being willing to courageously talk about the things that a lot of brothers will hide and try and dip and dodge around having experience. But too many of us have had similar experiences for us to not be arming each other with information and of course with experiences that give us an opportunity to grow with wisdom. So that said, appreciate y'all. I will see y'all soon. Thank you for supporting the channel. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. And I will holler at y'all soon. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.